I want to welcome you to the January 4th special meeting of the Governing Board of the Chandler Unified School District. Mrs. Nye, could you please do our roll call?
Barb Moston.
Here.
Laura Bruner.
Here.
Lindsay Love.
Here.
Jason Olive.
Here.
Joel Work.
Here.
Thank you. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Dr. Castile, since this is the first meeting after the election of our new board members, and after the January 1st, which is the date that they take office, would you please administer the oath of office for our newly elected board members?
Is this on?
Yes.
The three new elected individuals would stand up, please, and raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Barb Mosden,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Arizona,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and defend them against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge the duties of the office of governing board member
discharge the duties of the office of the governing board member
for the Chandler Unified School District Number 80,
for the Chandler Unified School District Number 80,
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Olive. Welcome, Mr. Worth. It's good to have you on the board. So our first duty for this first of the year meeting is the election of the board president for 2021. Dr. Castile.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, typically what we do is I just handle the election of the president, and then I hand the gavel over to the president, and they elect the vice president. Thank you. So I would open nominations for the board president for the 2021
I nominate Barb
21 school
Mosden.
year. I'm sorry?
I nominate Barb Mosden.
We have a motion, nomination for Barb Mosden. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for Barb Mosden. Is there another nomination?
I nominate Laura Bruner.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, I'll go with Barb Mosden first. All in favor of Barb Mosden serving as the president for the 2020-21 school year? Raise your hand, please. Okay, motion passes. Barb, I think you're the chairman or the president.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone's support. Now I would like to, we shall do the election for our board vice president for 2021.
I nominate Jason Olive.
Can I please, can I please ask for the motions first? Do I have a motion? Mr. Worth.
So moved. I nominate Jason Olive.
Okay, we have Mr. Olive.
I nominate Laura Bruner.
Is there a second? Mrs. Bruner and Ms.
Second for
Is there a
Jason?
second? For Jason, I'll second.
Second.
So there's been,
Mrs. Paulson, Donna didn't hear if there was a second
Is there
for
a second
Mr.
for
Owen.
Jason?
yes.
You second, okay.
Is there a second?
And who seconded for Mrs. Bruner?
I just heard a bunch of seconds and I couldn't.
But it was moved by Ms. Love. No second? Okay. All those in favor of Jason Olive for president, please raise your hand. Vice president, I'm sorry, for vice president. Motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Olive. You are vice president for 2021. Our next item of business is to approve the minutes of the December 9th, 2020 regular board meeting. I have not heard that there's any additions or corrections to the minutes, so could I please get a motion for those to be approved as stated on the agenda?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 9th, 2020 regular board meeting as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the December 9th, 2020 regular board meeting, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Donna? I'm not sure what my login is anymore for board docs.
Oh, you're logged in? Okay, let me get it.
We'll take a pause for a moment. We have some technical difficulties here. Actually, we'll go ahead and go on because I see on our agenda is that our next portion is for citizen comments. Tonight we have, I believe, 13 or 14 different comments. And what I would like to do is we are going to have 2 minutes for each citizen to comment. When I call your name, if you are actually in the room, you will go to the west side podium and have your 2 minutes. I believe that Dr. Nance is going to be timing you, and so she will give you about a 15-second or 30-second warning. 30-second warning.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
Due to health problems, I may be getting up and moving around, so I don't want to insult anybody.
Okay, thank you. If you are not in the room, we do have a podium next to the door with a live microphone that you can come to that microphone so that you don't have to walk all the way through the room. And so I am going to, hold on just one moment. I'm trying to find our number 1. It seems to have disappeared. Okay. What I'm going to do is tell you who is first up and then who is on deck. So if you could be ready and waiting with at least a 6-foot distance, I would really appreciate it. Our first individual is Frank Pezzarello, and our second person is Jessica Breinhart. She is on deck.
Hi, and thank you. My name is Frank Pezzarello. Thank you for taking the time tonight to listen to us, and I'll do my best to be short. I understand most likely most of us in here are divided, whether it be parents, teachers, or board members. I'm not naive enough to believe that my opinion is the only opinion that matters or is necessarily the right decision. But I do feel it's necessary to speak up for those who have no voice. The decision to me is very simple. If we allow students to return in person tomorrow, every statistical projection tells us cases will increase. Eventually, we will be forced to close, and this is inconsiderate. Inconsiderate to our teachers and staff, inconsiderate to parents, and inconsiderate to our students. This meeting might possibly be the most watched stream in the history of CUSD, besides maybe our football championship games, and parents and teachers alike are waiting to hear the outcome. The easy thing was to do nothing. By delaying this meeting, we will be delaying getting technology to our most needy. We have not allowed parents to find childcare, and we will have to deal with this one way or the other. But science and data says that we need to be virtual. All three metrics CUSD said were important are now in the red, and they have said they are no longer important. Superintendent Kathy Hoffman says schools should be virtual for 2 weeks. The AIA has paused all sports for 2 weeks, and CUSD is following that science. Local hospital beds are at or near capacity. On the Maricopa County Board epidemic curve page, an additional 1,392 children between the ages of 0 and 19 were reported positive today. That is a 15% increase over yesterday, and is 50,684 total children since 1/22/20. I'm going to skip through a bunch of the rest of the stuff and tell you that please be on the right side here. This has to do with our schools being virtual for 2 weeks. It is a CEA request. An abundance of teachers and parents agree. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Jessica Breinholt, and on deck is Shayla Workman.
Hi, my name is Jessica Breinholt. I'm a longtime CUSD parent. I have 4 kids that are currently in the district in elementary, junior high, and high school. I have 2 concerns tonight. My first concern is about the doxing of students by their teachers. In a recent incident, a student's personal information was published on social media by a teacher. This behavior is outrageous. For a teacher to give out the personal information of a student, a child, is an egregious breach of trust and professionalism. I am asking the board to review the matter with administration to make sure something like this never happens again. My second concern is regarding in-person learning. I first want to thank the district, applaud the district for the dashboard. I find it very useful, and I appreciate they're looking at those specific schools and numbers to gauge what schools should be opened and closed. So my second concern is regarding in-person learning. Is there really any other truly effective way to learn? I don't think so. To be clear, I am not anti-teacher, far from it. My kids, between them, have had over 100 teachers in CUSD, and with only a few exceptions, they've been wonderful teachers. I don't believe that those outside tonight represent all teachers in the district. Many want to be in person with their students tomorrow. The needs of children have been completely disregarded for the past 10 months. Children need school for more than just academics. They need it for their socialization, their mental health. Some kids need it for some semblance of stability in their lives, away from abusive homes and worse. Some need it to combat the loneliness of depression. They need to feel connected to their peers. Speaking of academics, our kids have lost a full semester of real learning.
30 seconds.
When does it end? I want to continue to support CUSD, but my kids have to matter. As a board, the most important people you serve are not the teachers. It's not the parents or the CUSD taxpayers. They're the children of this district, and they need their schools to be open. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was pretty impressed when I opened my email.
Could you hold just a moment?
Oh.
Our next person on deck would be Diane Lundell. Thank you.
Thanks, sorry. I was pretty impressed when I opened my email this summer from Chandler Unified School District, giving my children choices between online only, hybrid only, or in-person only for their intent to return for the 2020-2021 school year. The email went on to say, the teachers and staff of the Chandler Unified School District are eager to get back to serving our community and providing the first-class education that has made CUSD the premier district of choice and the #1 rated school district in Maricopa County. Of course, there was nothing the district could do about the executive order from the governor's office that mandated that schools could only offer the online-only option for everybody, but that order expired August 17th, about a week and a half after CUSD's school year started. It was puzzling that CUSD didn't offer to have the entire district back with the in-person option until October. What happened to our choices? Why were they taken away? How many students did CUSD lose because of the loss of choice? Look, I'm grateful for the teachers that my children have had. In my opinion, they've had some of the finest that CUSD has to offer. However, the reality is teachers are not a protected class of worker. There is an inherent risk for most people who get up and go to work every single day. We shouldn't treat the coronavirus for less than what it is or as if it doesn't exist. That would be foolish. We also shouldn't treat it like it is more than what it is or as if it is the only thing that exists. That would also be foolish.
30 seconds.
Long after the government comes in and tells us COVID-19 is no longer a pandemic, there is still going to be an inherent risk for teachers and staff, and just about anyone who has a job to get up and go to work, too. We should hope that the risk has a 98+ survival rate like COVID-19. Chandler Unified School District was on the right track when they opened the school year as the district of choice. In a time when we feel like so many choices are being taken away from us, be the school district that gives the people of its district the power to choose for themselves.
Thank you, Shayla. We appreciate. And on deck will be Robert Brennan. This is Diane. Diane, how do you pronounce your last name?
Lundahl.
Lendl? Thank you.
All right. Well, good evening to everyone. In addition to what Frank Pezzarello said earlier, I'm here tonight as a CUSD parent and as a CUSD educator both, to speak on 4 points supporting a return to virtual instruction until it is safe. What triggers a resurgence? The answer is changes in behavior according to the CDC and experts in risk management. What we know is that the holidays cause changes in behavior within our community, and our students are part of that community, as are the adults they live with and are exposed to. Any risk management expert will tell you that the benefits of in-person instruction are not worth the risk of a resurgence caused by the changes in holiday behaviors. Second, our lead social worker reminded me today that mental health is important, but losing one's life and health are first priority in Maslow's hierarchy of needs before emotional needs. I am also reassured that our district has invested a lot of time and money in helping the outreach programs that were developed when we first went virtual in the first quarter. Third, our AP and honors students are also suffering because they have told me personally that when the district states they are prioritizing in-person instruction, they are being pressured to attend in person and risk their health for fear of losing their competitive edge with scholarships and college entrances. You are risking their mental health as well by cornering them in the classroom.
30 seconds.
The promise to reflect teacher voices in today's task force meeting failed. My colleague and I spent lots of hours gathering data and viewpoints and opinions. We were not given the chance to give everyone's opinion, just our own. It is for these reasons, and many I don't have the time to state, like the overburdening of our campus healthcare workers, our hospitals, I ask you to vote for a return to virtual instruction until safe. I am also a parent, and in both roles as a
Time has
teacher,
expired.
we work harder online.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan is up next, and on deck is Sarah Frechette. I don't think I'm saying that correctly, but Mr. Brennan.
Hi. So my kids go to CUSD, and I am here in support of CUSD going completely virtual. And I just wanted to make a few statements, really. I believe all students should be virtual for their teachers and their family safety. This virus is real. It's killing people in record numbers. Students are disease vectors, and as such, the virus passes to them, through them, to their relatives, to their teachers, which in turn kills a portion of them. The new UK variant is filling UK hospital wards with children. That variant is now here in the US, and it is far more contagious than the initial one. The Chandler metrics for going virtual were set when we were in a controlled lockdown. The virus is now completely out of control. Arizona experienced the worst day on record today, and all of your school board metrics are red. Tomorrow will be the worst day on record, followed by the next day. Our hospital is being overwhelmed, and as I mentioned previously, people are dying. Students and teachers need to remain at home in a safe learning environment. Clearly, though, the push to teach kids in person is to ensure that we receive funding at the 100-day mark and to avoid having to do any actual work to ensure the virtual environment's success. So I'll end my remarks with two simple questions. One, how many dead teachers is considered an acceptable number? And two, how many dead students is considered an acceptable number? If the answer is 0, then we need to go completely virtual until a vaccine is available. If the number is anything higher than 0, then we should probably be ashamed. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Sarah Frechette, and then Minnie Fisher is on deck.
You've seen the numbers. You know the metrics. Every day in Arizona, a population the size of Basha and Chandler High School combined test positive for COVID. And every day in this state, a population the size of my even block schedule dies. CUSD board members most likely were elected to debate curriculum and teaching and testing, not to enforce and preserve public health. But here we are. You have the power to slow the spread by returning to virtual. It's not just spread in classrooms that you control. It's the bus rides to and from school. It's the coffee dates that are so easily made on the way home. It's the spaghetti dinners before a sporting event. I'm sorry you are in this position. I am sorry this burden to save lives is on your shoulders, but it is. Please return to virtual until it is safe.
Thank you. Our next person up is Minnie Fisher, and on deck is Kelsey O'Neill.
Ms. Love, Mr. Worth, and Ms. Castile, good to see you. Everyone else, I'm glad I'm here. I don't know what brought me here today, but a friend died from COVID. Didn't admit that he had it, wouldn't go to the doctor, died in 5 days. So I'm here, and his spirit brought me here. Amen. In coming back to Chandler, after working here for a few decades, I saw a mission statement. And that mission statement is going to be partially read here. And the vision statement. Chandler Unified District is a safe and productive environment where students and adults are engaged in a meaningful learning experience. Our diverse population is a strength and a spirit of unity. Collaboration and respect permeates our community. Our graduates are prepared for success in the global community
30 seconds.
and thrive as responsible and ethical citizens. 2, our children, our achievement, and their well-being is a major concern. The mission statement to empower all students with the knowledge and skills and attitudes necessary to excel in college, career, and life. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next is Kelsey O'Neill, and on deck is Ginja Merritt.
Hello, dear board members. I am a parent of 2 CUSD students, and as we sat here, it was just announced that Arizona has the highest rate of COVID in the world. As it is setting records with case numbers, our hospitals are filling up with people, and the community, sorry, I'm just nervous. Anyway, I just want to ask the board to follow the guidelines that we set. What are we teaching our students if we don't follow the metrics? Are we teaching them to break rules? CUSD promised teachers and staff that they would follow the guidelines. We've been in the red for over 3 weeks in all 3 guidelines. So I would like to set a positive example for our students and for the safety of our staff and our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ginja Merritt is next, and Heather Hale is on deck. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
No, but nobody ever does. My name is Ginja Merritt.
Ginja,
It's like
okay.
ginger, but with an A at the end. And I am a parent of 2 kids in the CUSD school system. I have a senior, and I have a junior. Both of them have had some excellent education. And but I'm here not only to support the teachers and the parents of kids who are going to school and possibly bringing the virus home to them, or going out into the community and bring it home to them. I'm here as a healthcare worker. I wanted you to know what I see on a daily basis. I work face-to-face with COVID patients. I'm seeing patients who are in their 40s and 50s, which is my age, die. They come in, they're runners, they're in good health. They are, they might have, maybe a few health issues, but who doesn't nowadays? They're parents, and we think they're doing fine, and then they die. We have so many patients on ventilators right now, and we have a bunch of ventilators that were made by car manufacturers that don't do squat. They don't do enough. And I'm here to beg you to really think about what's going on right now. I want my kids in person. I chose that, but I was very happy with the Google Classroom virtual when we needed to be. And right now, the numbers are soaring. People are being treated in tents. We have patients in rooms that have no windows. And it's only going to get worse. And I just really am begging you to please keep us virtual till safe. We need to really look at this as a community effort, not just, schools do not exist in a bubble. This is a community, and our community needs to step up and keep everybody safe, because there's too many people who are in denial. Thank you so much.
Our next individual is Heather Hale, and on deck is Katie Nash.
I'd like to say thank you to some of the board members who do what is right for the kids. I really appreciate it. I didn't expect to get up here, but I'll tell you what's in my heart. My kids want to go back to school. They know the risk. I know the risk for them. I see the benefits of them going into classroom. I have a special needs son who was failing online. His teachers did what was best, but when he got into the classroom, he flourished. These kids are resilient. They know they will be okay. It will work. I work with all the children at my elementary school. I'm a neonate, and I see their smiling faces. I will be so sad if I don't get to see them, their smiling faces tomorrow. They want to be there. I know their parents want them to be there. We have we live in Chandler. It's a great district. Let's do what is right for our kids. Let's get them into school. See that we show that we love them. Thanks.
Thank you. After Katie Nash will be Armando Spataro.
Good evening, Governing Board. I'm Katie Nash, the President of the Chandler Education Association, and we are very grateful that you were able to move up this special session to tonight per our request. And thank you so much for working with us and continuing this positive relationship that we have built so far. It's also my pleasure to advocate on behalf of the most amazing educators here in Arizona. And as such, we realize that virtual learning is not ideal for everyone. It is incredibly difficult. Our educators spent countless hours over their summer learning these platforms to make it more engaging. It's not what we would like to see, because we know that's what is not the best for students, but it is what is safest for our students, for our educators, and for our community right now. Many parents have said that they chose in-person instruction with the assumption that we would follow the county benchmarks, which when they recommended for us to be in virtual instruction, that is what we would do, and they haven't been surveyed since. So to use that as an arguing point, it's not really quite fair. They'd chosen in person under that assumption that we would follow those benchmarks. They were since changed and now just counted as recommendations. We have some educators who are really concerned about what in-person instruction looks like for them because they have specialized populations, like our preschool teachers who are working hand over hand with students, our special education teachers who are diapering kiddos, and the kids can't wear masks. And then lastly, we recognize that this is difficult on everyone's mental health, but the folks who are using that as an arguing point are the same ones who told us to stick to reading, writing, and arithmetic last year, but now it fits their agenda this year to argue for in-person instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. After Armando is Pai Shri.
Thank you. Dear board members, I'm asking to again plead with you to keep our schools open. As you know, there's ample evidence to support continuing in-person learning. Previously, the board has expressed a desire to follow the science. Numerous experts have stated that schools are safe and the best place for children is in the classroom. Please follow this advice. I thought the district developed a plan to help mitigate the spread of COVID while keeping schools open. Why are we now deviating from that plan? What is the expected outcome for going virtual? Is it to lower cases? I ask any board member to research any state or district, for that matter, that identifies whether or not closing schools have helped to reduce cases. I guarantee you will not find any. Schools are not a vector of rising cases. Dr. Kara Christ of the Arizona Department of Health Services and other experts show data that not one school has over 1% active cases. As a parent, I cannot express strongly enough how damaging it would be to my children and our family if our children are not allowed to attend in-person school. I fear that districts will look back and see a trail of collateral damage created by denying their children their place in school. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophia Rosales is on deck. And did I pronounce your name correctly, Pai, or?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm here tonight as a parent of a CUSD student. First of all, I'd like to thank everyone, because I know everybody is trying to do their best. A lot of us are for, against, but I'm just here to share my thoughts. I'm here to support the teachers and to support virtual classes until safe. I don't know what safe means. It's different for each of us. Offices are closed. Employees are kept home. Employers say they're concerned about the employees. I'm sure CUSD feels the same. We have our kids. We all love them. We don't like being home. We really don't. We want to be out there, all of us. We can only do it if we can stop the spread. We can only do it if we are alive. Let's do whatever possible to reduce the bandwidth. 1% of cases, someone said. I don't think it's true. Not all cases make it to the dashboard. I've had friends who've not made it to. All we request is support. We are in it together, teamwork. Let's try, reduce the spread, keep the kids home, provide them with virtual classes for COA. The lesser number of kids they are in person, the lesser exposure the teachers have. Provide COA with good support system where kids can access classes for their AP and other subjects. Some of us parents who are
30
home
seconds.
can keep our kids home, can limit the exposure, try and do whatever possible. It's true, it's not flu, it's COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. And last, Sophia Rosales.
Hello, board members and Dr. Castillo. I am a sophomore at Hamilton High School, but am right now at the moment on COA. I know you have a lot of parents here telling you their side of the story, but I think it's best if you hear from a student side of the story. I know many students that are in person and that are scared for their safety and their health. At Hamilton, there was a case of corona, and they were scared that they might have been infected too. I know that I am scared to go back in person as well, and I don't think I want to because of the risk. I helped in my elementary a lot of teachers with their classrooms, and I am very concerned for them because they have been with me since kindergarten. I still remember my kindergarten teacher and till now. I am scared for her and for all of them, and I just hope you can do the right thing and not go back in person. Please take it from a student's point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Appreciate you coming tonight. I want to thank all of our community members who came out this evening to speak, and we listen to what you say. We appreciate that you take the time and the effort to share your thoughts and your feelings with us. We will now move on to our next item, which is our action item. And this is about in-person and virtual instructional options. Dr. Castillo.
Madam President, if I might just deviate, we had met with all the certified and then another support staff group, and could I provide you with a summary of what occurred that day? We've been scrambling, trying to make sure we took that information into account. So if I could have, Wendy, are you ready to give just a high-level overview? I think we have sent you the link to the certified. It can show you every question, all the responses, all the comments from that. We've sent it to you through email. It's over 180 pages. So this is not a thorough report we're going to give. And I'm going to ask Larry to do that one. But Wendy met at Hamilton High with support staff. So Wendy, would you kind of give a high level, just a summary?
Wendy, before we go on to the summary, I've been notified that we have not finished the citizen comments yet, and we do need to hear from Mr. Locke. We had online comments also, and I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Castile. We continue to provide the public with an opportunity to provide input to the board and administration through electronic citizen comments. Since our last board meeting, we have received feedback from more than 800 people. They are broken down categorically for not only your perusal, but also for public review on our website. The opportunity is promoted on our governing board page, allowing for the convenience of providing feedback from the comfort of your home or a smartphone. For now, this complements the citizens' comment section that requires individuals to come to the district to fill out a blue form prior to the start of the meeting. With our current format, we typically are able to provide board members feedback almost a day in advance to give them time to process the information and ask questions of the district administration. In this week's case, we worked up to the start of the board meeting to complete the report this week to get as much feedback to you as possible on the first day back. The input is organized by topic of interest. They fall under school health and safety mitigation, COVID dashboard and metrics, social, mental health, closed schools, keep in-person learning, academics and finals concerns, offer and move to virtual learning. Thank you to the board for your commitment, stress on teachers, evaluation of school-by-school basis, criteria for making choices, and finally, communication. The board appreciates hearing various points of view, but does not consider anonymous contributions some kind of a vote, obviously. You have all the submissions verbatim for your consideration. They're also available on the website for public review. And regarding communications, while we're on the topic, I want to point out that due to a technical glitch, some of our families with students in the Chandler Online Academy apparently didn't receive communication on School Messenger on both December 31st and January 3rd, and we apologize and we work to rectify that. That's the report.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. I do apologize for moving on before it sometimes throws me for a loop when we have both. So, Dr. Nance.
Dr. Castile, can you repeat what you said? I missed some of it when you were talking about going to Wendy's.
Wendy is going to give a summary of what occurred at Hamilton High today after the county Dr. Stemler reported. And then Mr. Rother is going to provide a summary of what happened with our certified staff at the Center for the Arts. Just a high-level summary.
Okay, and there's 160 pages, did you say?
We just sent you about 81 if you want to go through every comment. Again, because we only had a few hours, it's just overwhelming for us to do a comprehensive report. We just wanted you to see a high level and then...
I just missed the word comments, okay.
Yep.
I am not reading 160 pages. So I had the opportunity, along with several of our assistant superintendents, to meet with support staff representatives at Hamilton High today. We did have representation across our sites and department levels, as well as every position that our support staff fill. So to give you a broad overview, we do have some specifics at individual sites that we'll be following up on. We had the presentation from our Maricopa County Health specialist, and then we also opened up where our support staff could dialogue and share how they are feeling, as well as what mitigation strategies were helpful. So in general, I would tell you the majority of them felt safe in their positions. However, they were able to give us specific things that either help them be safe or ways that we can improve in certain areas as well. We have what mitigation strategies are currently helping them in their positions, the hand washing, sanitizing stations, the mask requirements, gathering limitations. So as we've narrowed down the ability to eat in the lunchroom or break rooms, et cetera, having arrows in the hallway and A-frames to really narrow down the exit and entrance areas, socially distancing in the hallway. We have our COVID-19 sprayers and pumps for the buses and cleaning supplies in the classrooms. The face masks, they have extra at the sites if students or staff have it not available or forget to bring it. Keeping classes separated at recess, assigning noontime aides to specific classes and grade levels in order to limit exposure, custodians cleaning and disinfecting more frequently, the dashboard that's available to keep people informed, sanitizing desks between classrooms, social distancing, the plexiglass that's been put in offices and areas needed, meetings held on Microsoft Teams when possible, and cohorting kids in groups. Our community ed department has done that with their daycare and before and after school options. Access to COVID testing for CUSD employees and tables outside when able to, and multiple bathroom cleanings. That's not the full list, but that's the majority of things that were repeated. Additional mitigation strategies that were suggested or shared. Increase the number of hand washing or sanitizing stations, possibly to the playground or outside areas, so it's not limited to just the cafeteria area. Consistent and repeated parent notification for rules and expectations. Consistency across sites on enforcement of protocols that are in place. Additional spacing of students within the cafeteria. Firm decision-making. Support staff felt like sticking with one and moving on. Sometimes their positions can change with virtual or in person, so any consistency that can be made. Rapid test options for bus drivers. Include buses in the cohort tracking and notification. More sprayers, or they have pumps right now on the bus drivers, and so looking at additional sprayers. Modified school schedules or more interventions and resources for our self-contained classrooms. Clear process on how to order additional cleaning supplies and plexiglass if desired. Continue to follow county and school district guidelines. Ability to work from home if and when a school goes virtual, if that position allows. Expand the cashless, ticketless, and keep it for sports and activities. Rotation of staff in an environment when workstations are close. Consider additional resources. Oh, that's for the special ed, sorry. Addition of smaller masks. They have kind of a one-size-fits-all mask that's handed out if a student forgets. So the elementary, we're looking at a smaller version for like the K2 kids that might be available to fit better. Encouragement for staff to test and providing a designated area and conference room if parents are needed to meet rather than a small office setting. Additional concerns that did come up or items that they wanted to share. The need for consistent communication sent out across departments so they feel they're up to date on the latest information. Additional clarification and explanation of dashboard to all employees. Had a repeated message they felt the district was doing a good job and better than most of our neighboring districts. I feel safe was repeated. Follow the numbers. They show kids are safe at school. Virtual is hard on parents and students. The paid staff to stay at home while support staff, some of them, even when they were offered different deployment jobs, some of them, their jobs were eliminated or they had benefits cut on some of the time that we were virtual. There was an option on the high-risk bus drivers and what to do for those positions. Appropriate social distancing and mask enforcement on buses. Continue to enforce and social distance. Make it sure that everybody's taking the mask and mitigation seriously and that they're addressed if they're not. Personal responsibility came up a lot on how everyone needs to be accountable for their own actions. There was a clarification with our attendance techs on just needing, as things change from in-person to virtual, that they're up to speed on what they're needing to do for virtual as well. And then some of them mentioned some considerations on certified and staff members on sometimes there's a feeling that they're not treated equally.
Thank you, Dr. Nance. I think we'll pause for a second and ask if any board members have any questions. Mr. Worth?
I guess I may have one. During the presentation, I thought I heard the doctor say that the kids may even be safer in school, but I don't remember the rest of the conversation. Dr. Stemner, right? She did mention that in the presentation.
I don't know if you have notes from the...
I can address that, yeah. So I can address that a little bit, Mr. Worth. There was a portion of that presentation where she mentions with strong mitigation strategies, there are some studies that suggest that students are safer in schools regardless of what could be potentially a higher community spread. And she did take some time to talk through the difference between community spread and what's actually happening in schools. I don't know exactly the quote from that, but she referenced a study from Mississippi and she referenced a few other studies that the county was looking at as well.
Okay.
Ms. Love, did you have any questions for Mrs. Nance?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me through all of this? Okay. So my question is, how were teachers selected for today's certified meeting?
Do you want the certified or support staff? I work with the support staff.
How were teachers selected? Because I just in kind of looking through some of the slides, it looks like in the who's in the room section, which I don't know what slide number that is, it's overwhelmingly like elementary school teachers.
Ms. Love, I sent an email to the principals and asked them to recommend or identify 2 people from every campus, which gave us over 90 individuals, so that each side had 2 individuals coming to share their perspective and give us input.
So
And
it just
there was no criteria.
But it's just like looking at it because we have more elementary schools than secondary, and what we've heard is that primary is able to social distance and has different mitigation strategies than our secondary. It doesn't look evenly stacked when you take into account those perspectives.
Okay.
That's all I'm trying to get at. Like our elementary schools might feel, or our elementary teachers might feel safer in the classroom if you go down the list because we have some different mitigation strategies. but then our primary teachers may not feel as safe because we can't do adequate social distancing and, things of that nature. And I'm worried that that voice is getting drowned out, even though I know that we have two different motions that are suggested today between primary and secondary. It just, when you look at it and you take the information, it looks like overwhelmingly all the teachers feel safe, or 50% of the teachers feel safe, 50% don't, or I think it was like 51, 49, something like that. But it's not really telling the full story, if that makes sense.
Yes, Ms. Love, I don't want to make it sound as though that is reflective of 5,000 employees. This was our first attempt to put people in the room and get their input and thoughts. It wasn't a vote per se, it was a way to garner the thoughts of the people in the room. And I know there were a couple that were coming prepared to share the position of their whole faculty. That really wasn't their role. In fact, a couple of them after the meeting stayed, and I've also talked to Katie Nash about putting out a survey to our staff and ask, because they wanted to know, are you going to ask this question of all staff? So
But
again,
I guess that would be kind of like my next question is there the potential for us to do a survey?
Absolutely.
I know, like, depending on where we go tonight, it would be good to hear from as many staff as we could. I know the CA provided a survey, but it would be good if we did our own survey as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. So again, we're just telling you what occurred. This isn't intended, it gave us another perspective in addition to all the emails, the phone calls, and so forth. Larry has an overview of that. Larry is the certified Mr.
Okay, are there any other questions that we have from the board? Okay. Mr. Rother.
Governing Board, Dr. Castile. So I'll share out just a kind of big picture summary of what happened in this morning's meeting with certified staff. We had 60 elementary teachers, 11 junior high, 12 high school, and 10 that either floated between or didn't sort of specify one area or another. First point of the part of the presentation was from Dr. Peggy Stemler from Maricopa County Department of Public Health. She is also the doctor that does the weekly webinars for schools, and so it was great to have her there to provide some information about county benchmarks and also recommendations from the county. Her presentation lasted around an hour and 15 minutes, so I know many of you were there. We have a recording of that if you'd like to go back and view that as well. To summarize some of the major points made during that presentation was that Maricopa County Department of Public Health continues to modify its guidance based on recent research and updated information. The community spread, and we mentioned this a little bit before, community spread are separate from what they're calling school outbreaks, and she talked a little bit about what that means. Referenced a few medical studies indicating that schools with strong mitigation strategies may be safe, even if community spread is high. And then talk through multiple factors that Maricopa County Public Health is recommending should be analyzed when school closures are being considered. Among those, community spread data and county benchmarks, the number of students and staff affected by COVID-19 or quarantine at a particular site, frequency of new cases, student considerations should be taken into account, such as age and mobility, learning styles, access to technology, and special needs. She went through a little bit about epi curves and trend data. Community behaviors and beliefs should also be taken into account, ability to maintain operations at the school, current learning model and the effectiveness of the current learning model, and access to COVID testing. And so that's in summary. There was also a question and answer period that Katie Nash moderated for certified staff, and we had a few questions from support as well on that. The next aspect of the morning session with the certified staff is we really wanted to gather some input. And so we asked staff first about school safety, and we asked them a question: do you feel safe at school? Those in the room were 51% responded yes, 49% responded no. We did have a few folks that couldn't be at the meeting that stayed. I think we had 6 to 8 folks that viewed the Teams meeting online that weren't able to attend in person. So of our total, that was the total that was there in the room. Of the 49% that answered that they did not feel safe, we asked them why. In summary, they discussed things like class sizes being too large and the ability to social distance, the accuracy of the CUSD dashboard and the belief that there are more cases in schools that are being identified or reported, overall community spread, including student and staff behavior off campus, and inconsistent mask use and the types of masks that are being used. And so when asked what could be done to make you feel safe, we did ask the folks that were in the room to designate if they were secondary or elementary, so we were able to break those out. So you will see on some of the slides feedback, and this was the first question that we asked, that feedback that asks what level the staff was at when they provided that feedback. So some of the things that were mentioned were directly related to some of the things that didn't make them feel safe. So if they said class sizes were too large, there was a lot of comments about lowering class sizes. But in addition to directly addressing the areas already mentioned, it was mentioned that we should be virtual for 2 weeks for the folks that didn't feel safe, reduction of class sizes and overall students on campus via either a virtual or hybrid, the accuracy of reporting cases by students and on dashboards, temperature checks for students and staff, and increased testing sites, and increased cleaning, ventilation, and air purifiers. So those were a few of the things mentioned that would make them feel safe. Dr. Gilbert went through the different learning models, so we gathered some input, some pros and cons regarding in-person, virtual, and hybrid. I didn't include that in this summary, but you have all of that feedback on the document that I sent you via email. And then we talked about our current plan, and we had, of the roughly 95 or so folks that were there in attendance, 246 comments regarding our current plan. And so I want to summarize that, and there's a lot to summarize, but if you do have time, take a look at specifically that question, because there was quite a bit of feedback we were able to gather. Now, I will first tell you that if you look through those comments, there was support for virtual learning, there was comments in support of hybrid learning, and there were comments in support of in-person learning in our current plan. Multiple comments in support of each of those. There are concerns about community spread, concerns about community behavior, support for a 2-week school closure. There was comments regarding the current closure threshold that we have in place of the percentages, may be too high. Concerns for parents needing to find daycare arrangements on short notice if there is a school closure. Supports for looking at sites or levels individually. There were several comments regarding that. Concerns regarding teacher fatigue and changing expectations. Safety concerns mentioned previously regarding safety were also mentioned here. Concerns that a 5-day closure under the current plan may be too short. There were comments regarding the number of students that are being quarantined, comments regarding the social emotional ramifications for not having in-person learning, concerns with providing simultaneous in-person and remote access to instruction. There were several comments about that, and several comments just in appreciation for the opportunity to provide input. And so we also had all of our participants do a sort of an exit ticket. And we asked them, do you have a better understanding of the COVID-19 school benchmarks and Maricopa County guidance after today's meeting? And out of 5, the average score was a 3.5. Do you have a better understanding of the CUSD COVID-19 dashboard? The average score there was a 3.7 out of 5. And then I was able to provide input at today's meeting that had an average score of 4.3 towards the strongly agree side. So out of our 95 folks that responded to that question, 78 responded with either a 4 or a 5, that they felt like they were able to provide input in today's meeting. So that's a big picture overview and a summary of what the certified staff talked about this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Rother. I appreciate it. Yes, Mr. Worth, do you have a question? Yes.
So there's a lot of requests there. How many of those are you able to answer?
What do you mean by request?
Well, the comments made, for example, teacher fatigue and those sort of things.
Yeah, so the way it was set up was we allowed, because with such a large group of 95 folks there in person, we wanted to give them all an opportunity to provide input. So they actually typed in the answers using a computer program, Mentimeter, and we tallied all those results so the folks could see them in real time. We tried not to address individual concerns with things that were potentially within the school's control or the district's control and things that weren't within our control. We just really wanted to gather input at this morning's meeting and see what people are thinking about.
But for those valid comments, what's your goal to respond? Not valid is not the right word, but those comments that are appropriate, how do we respond and how quickly can you?
Well, I think some of the input that was given us specifically regarding safety and some things that are happening on campus, we know that the best way to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 is to have those things in place and do them with fidelity. So some of those comments that were made, we want to make sure that we get that back to our site administrators and make sure that they know that these are the ways that teachers are feeling, both at their site and around the district. Some of them we may not be able to address necessarily if they have more to do with the community or community behaviors. That was mentioned quite a bit, other than just to continue to promote the need for to do the things we need to do to stop the spread in our communities, which therefore helps our schools stay open.
Joel, if I could just add, we haven't had time as a team to look at all the suggestions. So once we do, if it's plexiglass or more hand sanitizers or office space or whatever it is, we'll try to take those suggestions right away and work on them.
Yeah, that's
there
what
were some thoughts about large specials at the elementary level, and Mr. Narducci's already going to be looking at that and addressing the large numbers, because we can handle that at an elementary and lower those numbers. So that's all. We haven't had time as a team to look at it, and that's why I asked them to make a list of the things they were seeing quite a bit of. But we need a little more time.
That's great. I mean, they seem to be good comments. And I do apologize. I'm so far behind the curve being my first board meeting. I'm trying to catch up, so.
Okay. I would like to, Dr. Castile has passed out a couple of pages here, and I would like everyone to take a few minutes to actually go ahead and read the various options.
Yeah.
Dr. Castile, or would you like to go over it?
These are options. You have two contingents. You have a virtual and an in-person contingency that you've been hearing about. These are two perspectives. You can change the dates, you can throw them out, you can start over. If it were up to us, we would be looking at it elementary. Secondary, we would like to have, if the decision is to go virtual, we would like to have item C, where we could redeploy support staff so they are not without jobs, because when you go to virtual, there is a segment of our population we would have to redeploy in order for them to keep their jobs and their benefits. And the last one is a recommendation on the threshold for temporary virtual learning. We lowered those numbers, and that was one thing based on the surge and the committee's input. That was an easy one to grasp, that we would lower the threshold when a specific site would be closed temporarily. Right now, for instance, at a high school, it's 1% of the positive active cases, and we would recommend 0.75% of the positive active cases. Now, before I turn it over to you, if you go, and I couldn't print it off so it wasn't in 6 different pieces, but the new dashboard, we showed this to the committee, and I believe it was launched. We wanted to show it to the committee after, but there is what we had before. And then underneath, you will see every case that was reported to us, active and inactive. So an active case was brought on campus. There was an exposure to our campus. Others, over Thanksgiving, they got COVID, or they were at a wedding and got COVID, but they never came on campus. You'll see those are listed on the very bottom, right underneath. Keep scrolling down, and you will see every case that we have been made aware of, either by the county or the individuals, at the request of our staff.
Barb?
Yes.
So I will leave it to you to formulate your direction for the administration.
Yes, Mr. Ward?
One real quick question. One of the presenters said that our rate is the highest in the country. Is that accurate?
I don't know.
I did check the news, and that is accurate from what the news is reporting. There were 3 different news sources.
Not Chandler. Not Chandler Schools rate.
No,
You
they're
mean the
saying
state.
state.
The state.
Arizona has the highest rate of COVID-19 in the world, latest data shows. And that's ABC 15, AZ Central, and KTAR.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I might
Yes.
jump in here.
Mrs. Brunner?
First, I wanted to thank everyone. So many people did so much work in such a short period of time, and I just want to thank Dr. Castile, who I know was working over break when she shouldn't have been, and a lot of other folks were too, and Mr. Rother, and everyone that was a part of organizing this, and Ms. Nash, who moderated the questions. Obviously, you know, I think we know that this was kind of like a last-minute thing that we wanted to try to include as soon as we could come back from break. I think it points to a larger issue that we might want to look at, which is that maybe we can create some kind of systemic way to survey both classified and certified staff every quarter, maybe through CEA, pulling from all those folks, what is it that are your concerns, and then put that into a survey format that can go out every quarter so that we can have this information proactively rather than reactively. And I know it's a lot of work on people, but I think it's really valuable for us to have staff feel like they have some kind of input and contribution to the district, and that they, we know that from the research, employees who feel like, you know, that they have some element of control over what happens to them, obviously not all, but some element of control, they have higher productivity and longevity in that work site. I think we really need to look at this. I think I've mentioned, you know, having more frequent surveys in the past, and maybe we can take a look at that, you know, not tonight, but on another occasion, if we could put that. I don't think it needs to be necessarily an item on a board agenda. Maybe it's something that administration could just, you know, do as a procedure. That we could look at that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And then I don't know exactly where we're at, but I think we're at the point of making motions on this.
If everyone has actually been able to go through and read it, I'd like them to.
Okay, and then I have a
we
motion
all?
when everyone's ready.
Okay. Let's give you a couple of minutes to go through it.
I do have a question, and maybe this is for Dr. Castile. Looking at the secondary motions, I see the B, C, and D. C and D are separate motions, or are they included in option 2B?
I'm sorry, C and D would be separate motions.
Okay, I just wanted to,
Just to take action
Okay.
on those two areas would be helpful.
okay, I just wanted,
I think it would be, if it's virtual, then I think it would be nice if support staff knew they didn't need to worry about benefits and pay.
perfect, I just wanted to clarify.
I guess you could lump it into all one motion. We were just trying to sort through because we're not sure what to expect. We know you all have very strong feelings about the issue.
I think it might be best if we go one by one instead of lump everything. Does everybody kind of agree with
It
that?
might be easier to communicate that way.
Yeah, I think it would be.
But just like kind of, so C does not come into play unless we vote for option 2B?
Yes.
Okay,
Or the virtual option. Yeah.
Right, for either
C would
one.
be for anything.
Yeah. Dr. Castile or one of the other staff members, Mr. Rother maybe, could you, as we're looking at one of the options for virtual, could you review what would go on with our and how we would be providing services to our special education students?
Yeah, so our intent, which option are you looking at? Are you looking at elementary, secondary?
Any virtual
Okay.
option.
So what we're thinking is that we would work with our teachers, our special education teachers, in the specialized classrooms, very similar to the way that we did when we were virtual previously, where we were able to service those students that had the highest need in our self-contained programs, and be able to provide them the in-person services that they would need.
So it would be mostly restricted to our self-contained classrooms that would, even though the general population might be virtual, that we may have specific subgroups of special education that would be having some in-person learning.
Yeah, mostly in our self-contained classrooms is where we think we could provide that. For our resource classrooms or co-taught classrooms, that could be done virtually. So we did do that when we were in virtual that first quarter. But for our most at-risk students or medically fragile self-contained students, we would look to provide them in-person services at their school sites.
Okay, thank you.
We would just need a little time to work with staff to make sure that we were able to do that, so students could come onto campus and learn in person.
Okay. Has everybody been able to get through everything? Okay. Do you have a question?
I'd like to respond to the survey. The concern I watched over the years was, how do you fully educate that group? For example, we took health insurance. Health insurance was the most complicated thing in the world, so we got representatives from each school and spent hours educating them. Then we let them vote. So Camille's kind of got a core group. What I think makes more sense is we really take the time to educate a core group. You can restructure it. Then you let them vote, because they're going to understand all the issues. Whereas right now, it's so gosh darn complicated. We need to take the time to do it right, in my opinion.
Okay. Would you like to,
Thank
do you have a motion?
Appreciate it. I move to follow the current Maricopa Public Health and Arizona Department of Health Services benchmark thresholds to determine what modality of instruction will be offered for CUSD students, with the C option of redeploying of classified staff.
I'll second.
So, Mrs. Brunner, could you kind of go into a little bit more detail as to what you are requesting?
Sure. So as I'm sure we're all familiar with the Maricopa County recommendations for schools, I can, if you need me to read that from their website, I can do that. But I think we all know what they are. So let me, going into the red in 3 metrics, it was changed. So when staff members and parents agreed to either teach in person or have their children attend in person, at that time that decision was made, Maricopa County Public Health had it where if one of the metrics, one being how many out of 100,000 people have positive tests. Another one was percent positivity, and the third one being COVID-like illness. If one of those metrics was met in red, that would result in virtual learning with on-site supports. Then it was changed. There's still some question of how that happened or what process was involved there, but it was changed to 3 metrics. So all 3 needed to be in red for the recommendation. And so I am proposing the one that is the current one, which is 3 metrics in red, as that is the current advice from both the county and the Arizona Department. So I don't know, is there more that you needed for that?
Yes, so I guess would this be for a certain period of time?
It would just be dependent on their recommendation, right? So once we go, just like it took 2 weeks to go into, right, 2 weeks of 3 reds that would then move into virtual, I believe. And I was just reading the website the last week to make sure there were no more changes that weren't really announced. But my understanding is it's still the same way to go back to in-person hybrid model if it's in yellow, and then green for all in-person.
So there would be, it's conceivable that if we continue with a number of cases, then we would be not having any in-person until at least.
There would be on-site supports for students who needed to come in to use technology or needed, supervision at the sites, just like we were providing all along the way, right? So that's included in the recommendation that any students who have issues with technology or just need to be on campus for some reason, whatever that reason may be, that they would have those on-site supports. So that would still be part of the plan. And obviously there's leeway with special education, because obviously we have to look at each individual student, not just what kind of classroom they're in, if they're in resource or if they're mainstreamed or if they're in a self-contained environment. We actually have to look at each individual student's needs to determine what that should be. But that's also included in the criteria.
Barb?
Yes. Mr. Worth.
Can we table that until we hear the others and then come back to it? I don't know the parliamentary procedure.
We should actually vote on this particular one at this point
we can always bring
while
it
there's a motion on the floor, rather than having multiple motions on the floor that are possibly competing.
Another option is to propose an amendment to it, and then that could be considered friendly or unfriendly, and then that would determine what happens with the amendment.
Yeah. So it seems to me that basically we would be looking at, we could get down to we would have to get down to a 7% positivity rate for 2 weeks prior. You're saying basically go through the same reopening metrics that would be required to go to a hybrid method of instruction, which would have some of our, basically allow some of our students to go back in person. And that we would have to have 2 weeks of below 7% positivity rate before we would be allowed to bring students back to in person.
And this could change, right? They could change this again, and.
But is that what you're?
So
is that
what
is
the
that
current?
what you're?
I could read the whole thing if you want me to. So each week, the dashboard will provide an area's recommended learning scenario based on COVID-19 community spread. Greater than 100 cases per 100K is substantial. Greater than 10% positivity, COVID-like illness, greater than 10%. Those are all the reds. I won't read the other ones, but those are 5 and less, between 5 and 10, and then less than 5. And then if you scroll down, it's for 2 consecutive weeks with new case rates, right? So the following benchmark thresholds be met prior to offering any in-person learning. Cases, 2 consecutive weeks with new case rates below 100 per 100,000 people. So that would not be 7%. And that the positivity also says 10%, not 7%. So it would be 10%.
Because I know with our earlier metrics, we had to be at a 7%.
Right,
Had to
and-
be 7% before we could reopen.
Right, that's not what
But
it
was-
says any longer. Yeah, it says, according to their website at this moment, MCDPH recommends the following benchmark thresholds to be met prior to offering any in-person learning. 2 consecutive weeks with new case rates below 100 per 100,000 people. 2 consecutive weeks with 10% or lower positivity. It does not say 7 anymore.
Are there any other questions or discussion?
I do have a question. I think maybe whoever was in the room when the presentation had gone on, but there was a question that was asked about the Department of Health and whether or not they consulted on our specific dashboard. And it kind of cut out for me, but it sounded like no, they had not, and they don't recommend that schools do that. Was that the answer that was given, just to clarify?
I can answer that partly. I think that the question was when we developed our dashboard, was Maricopa County consulted in that? And the recommendation from Maricopa County is these benchmarks. And I think that was how she phrased that. I don't know specifically, and we did record it so we can go back and take a look at that. But I think that in terms of if they recommended schools use dashboards, I don't know that they said that they recommended schools use dashboards. But throughout the presentation, they did recommend looking at site-based data. So I think there was a couple of different messages in there. We've recorded it so we can go back and look through it specifically. But she does mention both the use of the county benchmarks and the use of site data when making school-based decisions for closures.
She, Ms. Love, she was familiar with our plan because she quoted it, 1%, 1.5%. So,
But I guess like my question is, and I know that we like to get cavalier and we like to be innovative in this district. That's why people come to CUSD, right? But my question is, why go beyond the county dashboard when the county does the work for us?
I think one of the answers to that is what she stated, is that the county is recommending that we look at other data, not just the dashboard.
But we could still look at other data without like putting it back onto our own dashboard, I guess. Like other districts are making this decision based off of the county's dashboard.
Correct, but she's recommending that you look at site-based decisions because each community is very different. And even in our community, our spread is not as high as the entire Maricopa County in this particular area.
And I understand that she did say to look at the
yes, and she recommends
Yeah.
strongly, I thought, that, you know, it was that you do look at what's going on in your community and your sites in order to be able to make decisions.
Well, let's talk about what's going on in our community right now, because she also referenced the fact that they recommend testing, like even if you are asymptomatic. That is not what's going on. We have people who are saying that they refuse to get their children tested or that they refuse to test themselves. That's not happening within our community, right? There's also the recommendation that, you know, communities look at, you know, different activities, like, you know, if the community is following the recommendations from the CDC, like staying home, wearing masks. We're hearing from teachers on site that the mask policy that we voted on as a board is not being followed to the letter that we pushed down, which was, you know, based off of the county and CDC. And then we also are coming off of a weekend where there was supposedly a big party that was in the news around New Year's Eve, and this is really scary for teachers and parents. So I guess like that's my confusion. And I think too, with our dashboard, there has been concern in the media around our dashboard and if it is as accurate. I think that's something that we need to take into account.
Well, and there have been a lot of changes made to it, that it should be more accurate. And, you know, testing is available for anybody who wants to, who is symptomatic or asymptomatic. it is a personal choice. You can't force people
Oh, I'm not
to
saying,
go get,
I'm not
to
saying
go,
that
but yet,
anybody should be forced.
but yet, that's a complaint that you just made concerning that you're saying, well, we don't have that testing. Yes, we do. It's
No,
here, it's
I didn't
there,
say
and
that
people.
we don't have that testing. I'm saying that people are not getting tested as much as is recommended. Like, she did make a statement this morning to, and people who were there can quote or correct me, that people should be getting tested more in our community than they are. We can't control that. But we're opening schools knowing that we are not, like, testing is available, but people aren't taking that opportunity.
And that's not something that we can force them to do.
I'm not suggesting that anybody be forced. I don't think that's what came out of my mouth. But I'm saying that it's simply not happening.
But it's available.
It's available, sure, but it's not happening. That's my. I mean, and I'm going to stop talking because I think that.
I think Jason
Mr.
has
Olive
a.
may have something.
Mr. Olive. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to talk about a different subject almost.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I'm sorry, I was almost going to talk about a different subject. I was getting back to to Ms. Bruner's motion. It's pretty open-ended. The couple of things that we have, the suggestions we have anyway, are not as open-ended. And, the county math, and they said this morning, is always 2 weeks old. So looking out 2 weeks, you're 2 weeks from potentially having, teachers getting vaccinations, the end of the month, something like that. So maybe we should back up and say maybe Martin Luther King holiday or over that weekend, we take another look at it. I don't know.
We do have a board meeting scheduled
Yes.
for the 13th, a regular board meeting, and that would be prior to any type of a switch.
So I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you're saying or not. Open-ended meaning that you don't know what's going to happen because it's based on data? Is that?
No, well, I'm saying instead of relying on that to come back in school, we rely more on the fact that if people are getting vaccinations and teachers are more confident that they can come back and teach safely and not get sick. That's the object of the game, so that kids aren't making adults
and maybe
sick.
that's something we can look at when that actually happens. I know Arizona's doing pretty well relative to the other states and getting the vaccines out, so that's good news. But no teachers are on board even for the next couple weeks, is my understanding, to
Right,
get
yeah,
their
it's going to be a
first
couple of
one.
weeks at least, yes.
And then you have to wait a whole, 4 weeks to get the second one. So we're looking like at least 6 weeks, probably more, especially since we have to put everyone in a line, right? And probably 8 weeks or maybe even 3 months, who knows? When all the teachers who choose to get vaccinated, I don't think there's any desire to force our classified or certified staff to be vaccinated. But so that's 2 to 3 months down the road, and we certainly can revisit this at any time, right? Just as we already have multiple times in the fall. So this proposal is just to follow the metrics that have been laid out for us because they are responsive to what's going on. And just to reiterate, even though these are collected by the state and the county, it doesn't mean we're following county metrics. We're following the metrics for our district only, which includes Chandler and Gilbert and Queen Creek, parts of Queen Creek and parts of Gilbert and parts of Chandler. And so we're looking at those areas only when we're using this data. We're not looking at countywide data or statewide data, even though they're the ones collecting it, right? So just wanted to make that clear.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Not questions, but a thought.
You may need to put the microphone closer.
I did. Oh, closer. The vaccine, I'm concerned that if employees refuse to take it, what are we going to expect? Are we going to expect them to test quite often? I'm concerned about that. If that's the key to turning this thing around and we've got a fairly large group refusing, I think the administration needs to figure out how to write that up and deal with it. It might be just require rapid testing once a week or something like that. But just to say, you get to say, no, I don't think that's acceptable in my opinion. But something for the future.
I do know that because this is on an emergency authorization usage, that there are different, I guess, protocols that are that employers can or cannot follow or demand, let's put it that way. I mean, I think that we should highly recommend it to our staff, especially those who are very concerned about catching COVID or bringing it home to their families or infecting someone else that they care about. But to be able to, but to require it with it being basically on an emergency authorization, that's something that can't be done.
I'm saying if they refuse,
yeah.
they still have to go through extensive testing.
Mhm.
They can't just, okay, for the next month or two, I'm not. They can get a rapid test in a couple days. Maybe you'd require that every other week. I just think in this crazy world and how dangerous this COVID is, just to simply say, oh, you don't have to if you don't want to, I don't think is acceptable. But I'd like the administration to figure out something in that area. I think they're going to have to eventually.
Have we done any surveying around that to see like what teachers are on board with taking the vaccine and not? And is that something that we can do?
They're part of the community, and there's going to be a little bit of everybody, right?
Yes, and of course, the individuals who have had COVID they're recommending for them not to take it for 90 days after they've recovered from COVID. So, you know, there's going to be a mishmash of all kinds of people. But I will say this, because it's going to be where an individual has to sign up. Like
Oh
they
yeah, I
do
have
in
to sign up for it at work.
Yes,
I
yeah.
go tomorrow. But, you know, I'm just wondering, like, do we know what our staff attitudes are around the vaccine? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying they can waive out, but
Mhm.
there has to be some alternatives that they just can't do whatever they want. Okay, I'm waiving out, I'm not wearing my mask, I'm not going to get tested. I'm sorry, in this world, that's not acceptable to me. But
So back to the motion that we had. So I move to follow the metrics, and we can add on, you know, later on, like a couple, you know, whenever it becomes relevant, if we think that the metrics are no longer relevant once every teacher or the majority teachers are vaccinated and staff. But at this point, I don't think that that's part of this motion.
I would agree. I don't think that we need to weigh the vaccine as, you know, or let that carry out what we decide here tonight in terms of like the metrics.
I don't like the fact that this is very open-ended. We are completely eliminating choice within our district. We have, I believe, the data that is shown nationwide concerning our schools, the fact that students are in a controlled environment, a much more controlled environment than they are when they are at home, when they are not in school and not and just doing things at home. Granted, there are a number of families who are extremely good about keeping their students isolated and wearing masks and being cautious. But if we truly are looking at trying to mitigate our community, I honestly don't believe that keeping kids home so long is going to actually achieve that goal. California hasn't had their kids in school for all year, yet they have some of the highest transmission rates in the country, and those kids have not been going back to school at all. It is this extra community behavior that is causing our rates to go up so high. I believe that kids are safer in the schools where they are in a controlled environment, where teachers and staff members have certain expectations for the kids at school. Everybody says, oh, the dashboard isn't right, the dashboard isn't right. We now have those tools to show that we are recording every single case. Now, people say, well, a parent doesn't tell you about it. Well, the county tells us about it. It may take a day or two longer, but we hear it. We know about it. If it's a positive test, we get the information, whether it's a little bit late or whether it would be much nicer to have a parent tell us whether their child has tested positive or not, because they're the first to know. Yes, there are people all over the state, all over the US, in our community, in our county, all over, who choose not to get tested. That's their choice. We can't make them go get tested, whether we would like to or not, but that's going to have, that is a flaw that is based on personal choice. My biggest disappointment is seeing the fact that our community itself is not, I am extremely disappointed that we have large parties in the community and that our community is not supporting mitigating the spread so that we can keep our kids in school. Our kids, we all know that in-person learning is the absolute best for kids. And we know that I truly fear that if we have an open-ended virtual learning for kids, that we are doing our most vulnerable kids a huge disservice. Our single parents who can't possibly stay home with their kids, who are not working from home, the people who are in essential positions, essential worker positions across the state who do have to go in. Our essential workers are called essential because they're truly needed. Teachers are an essential worker also. And I know that every teacher has not signed up for this. I mean, they did not sign up to be an essential worker, but they are. Our healthcare workers are different. Our first responders, our firemen, policemen, EMTs, all the different ones, truly knew when they chose their profession what they were getting into, I believe, as well as our doctors and nurses and x-ray technicians and all the others who are in the healthcare field as our essential workers. And I understand that our staff members are scared. That is something that is real. But I also feel as though when we start looking at our kids, those students that don't have the means, the socioeconomic status to be able to have a decent learning environment from home. I think that this is a huge problem within our district. Our families who have computers, who have great internet, who have only a couple of kids that they can have enough devices. But we watched in the fall when we did our virtual, that we had families that have 6 kids and they were only able to get 2 devices from the district because that's how many they could check out, because we didn't have enough for everyone. And so now they have 6 kids using 2 district devices and 2 of their own devices. And what about the rest of those kids in that family? There is such a disparity that I think it's a crime that we have an open-ended, forever virtual until these metrics are fulfilled. And I believe that we are doing our mitigation practices properly. I think that, yes, we can do better. And I think that that is the challenge for us, is to continue to improve our mitigation strategies to keep our students in school. I guess that's really all I want to say, but I'm quite passionate. These kids are our future, and we know that our kids are not learning as much as they can during virtual. Virtual is not a substitute, a good, an excellent substitute for being in person. So I will go ahead and call for a vote on Mrs. Bruner's motion.
Again, question. It bothers me we're not going to hear all the other motions. To me, there's got to be a way to table this for now.
We will hear other motions after this is voted, then you can not.
But unfortunately, we voted on it. If let's say we vote for this.
No.
We can
Okay,
bring
all
it
right.
back. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not opposed to that if that's what we decide to do.
Okay.
So all those in favor of Mrs. Bruner's motion, please say.
Probably, should I state it again, just so that we have it on?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. The motion is to follow the current Maricopa County Public Health and Arizona Department of Health Services benchmark thresholds to determine what modality of instruction will be offered for CUSD students with redeploying of classified staff, also known as option C in the options listed.
Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed? Opposed or nay?
Nay.
Motion does not carry. Do we have another motion?
So if we're going back, I make a motion for A, option 2, virtual instruction will begin on Wednesday, January 6th, and in-person instruction will resume Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, the day after Martin Luther King holiday. And I think to add to that motion, that will be reviewed in the next board meeting, which is, what's the date of the next board
13th,
meeting?
I think.
The 13th of January.
All right.
Second.
So this option is for elementary.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just going back to.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I was going back to Mr. Worth's request to hear the other motions. And so I figured that Mr. Worth wanted to start with A and then move down.
Sure. And Lindsay's going to teach me how parliamentary procedure in the future.
He's doing fine.
Yes.
Ms. Love, could I ask for clarification? In option 2, it also discusses January 5th, which is tomorrow, being a teacher workday for teachers to prepare and to deploy the devices, the special education, food and nutrition, distribution of food, childcare options, and then providing that free on-site learning opportunities and support. Is that all included?
Yeah, I was
Okay,
looking
I
at.
just, we
yeah, I
want to
was-
be able to
yeah.
communicate that out whenever,
Yeah,
whenever
did you want
all-
me, do you want me to, would it be easier if I read that option so people kind of know for
Sure,
transparency's sake? Okay.
if you're comfortable with that option, again, we were just creating options.
Yeah, okay, so I'll read it for transparency's sake. This option allows for a quarantine period after returning from winter break where students have traveled and participated in gatherings. Tuesday, January 5th, 2021 will be a non-student day and a teacher work day. Teachers will report to their school site in order to prepare for virtual instruction and distribution of devices and those students who need them, sorry. Special education services will be provided as they were during the previous virtual instruction. Dr. Marshall and her staff will work with teachers to deliver in-person services to those in specialized classrooms beginning the week of January 11th. Details will be communicated directly to the families involved. All students with special education services will return to school with the K through 6 general education population on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. Food and Nutrition Department will distribute meals. Communication will be disseminated to families. Childcare options will be provided. Communication will be disseminated to families. Schools will be open per Executive Order 2020-551 to provide free on-site learning opportunities and support services for students who need a place to go during the day.
So I have a question about this option. What about support services folks, bus drivers, all those kind of people?
That could be a separate motion, or you could roll that in so that our bus drivers, food service paras are all redeployed in this, for this period of time.
I assumed that it was a separate option. Did you want me to read that as well?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
If you want to amend it to include it or just keep it separate, it's fine.
If I can amend it to include that option, if that makes everybody feel comfortable. So I know we're going down the line for like secondary and primary, but I can add that into the motion for primary right now.
I think it might be important because if we go virtual and we are, I think that's a very big fear of our support staff is that their ability to earn an income would be compromised by us going virtual. So
I'll redo the motion, just kind of adding that. I thought it was a separate item, but Madam President, I make a motion to go with option 2.
An amendment?
Yeah, an amendment to option 2, which was virtual instruction will begin on Wednesday, January 6, 2021, and in-person instruction will resume Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, the day after Martin Luther King holiday, and with approval after the board meeting on, we said the 13th, President Mahaskin? Was the board meeting?
Who second? And who second?
And then support staff work schedules will be included in there. If virtual instruction impacts an employee's ability to perform their regular job duties, the administration recommends the employee be redeployed in meaningful work.
And who seconded?
1 second.
Second.
So, discussion?
Is there any, discussion? Mr. Worth?
I had halfway decided not to go down this road until I heard Dr. Stemner presentation. And she revisited the mask issue, and it surprised me because I thought maybe that's just me. And she was saying people are getting lax. They're not doing the 6 feet. Both people are not wearing masks. They're going into lunchrooms and taking off their masks. The one I heard the other day at schools is after kids left, masks were coming off. I'm going to have, and frankly in the district office, I've told Dr. Castile, I've been in the building seeing people walking in the hallway without masks, seeing them in meetings without masks, not 6 feet away. We have got to put some teeth, if we're going to do the in-school, we got to put some teeth into people wearing masks. So we all know masks mean that both people wearing masks, Barb told me, I think the statistic is about 1%. But we've gotten loose. So I guess to get my support in that, I need to see some teeth in it so that if an employee violates it and the administrator violates it, they get docked or something similar. This is the most critical time. Our infections are the worst. We need to follow the rules. And just because somebody doesn't like to wear a mask or wants to wear it but below their nose has got to change. And the district office needs to lead that leadership. I think our schools saw what was happening here and we just got more lax and we got more lax. And this is what she was saying was happening in the real world, where we're getting real lax. So I'm just a strong believer that the key thing is mask and wearing them. Wearing them obviously when the kids are there, but even when the kids leave. If you're in your classroom alone, fine. But if another teacher comes in, you wear the mask. And my sense is, and I think one of the speakers mentioned that they were seeing the same thing out at the schools. So that's just my thought on that issue.
And Mr. Worth, with a comment about, the kids really can't eat lunch unless they take their masks off.
I'm talking about
So-
in the lunchroom, right?
Yeah.
Which is too small a room as it is. I'm talking teachers.
Oh.
Not students.
Teachers, okay. I
Yeah,
thought you were referring
those-
to students, okay.
We've unfortunately designed those rooms so doggone small that they're crammed in there. So I think the teacher's going to have to eat their meals in their room. I don't think, well, you can take your mask off to eat. Well, when the room's crammed, that's dangerous. So, and she mentioned that in her presentation, by the way.
So are you saying that you want the administration to come up with a plan for that during this 2-week period that we're proposing?
I just want them to, I want some consequences if people don't follow the rules. I guess the best example is the NFL. There were no consequences, all kinds of problems. They put fines out, pretty much eliminated the problem. We need to do something very strong, and because, again, Laura, I think you should care about that, because masks are key to protect our employees and protect our teachers. And if we got employees or teachers that refuse, then there needs to be a consequence, in my opinion. Not sure how to fit that in these items, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Is there any other?
So is that an amendment to the motion, or are we happening with that?
I guess I can honestly say I came in this room not sure. So I kind of want to hear, I don't want to say, well, I'm not going to vote for this item unless that's in there. If that doesn't get in there and there's something better, I'll have to vote for that. So I'm not sure how to fit it in.
It sounds like maybe it's an amendment to this.
It could be. It could be, yes. I guess I could make an amendment to this.
So I guess would we amend it just to kind of phrase that, administration will come up with a plan for proper mask wearing at each site? I don't know can we even use the word consequence? I don't know. This is HR.
We did approve a mask policy. And I guess the real issue is, what are we doing to enforce that policy? And if we already have that policy, we should be able to come up with an enforcement, green card, yellow card, red card, like they do in soccer, or something along those lines. But I think that administration should, since the policy is already there, it's administration's duty to follow the policy and make sure that that policy is implemented district-wide.
And what I'm concerned about is principals need their staff. They don't want to criticize them, but I'm worried they're going to go wink, wink, just don't do it again. In this critical period, we don't have the time to do due process and so forth and so forth. We've got to implement this and very strong to protect everybody involved. I don't know. I trust the administration to figure out how to word it. I know if Camille gets in front of her principals, they're going to listen. But something has to be different from what I have seen, and according to Dr. Stemmer, what the world is doing right now.
I think that one of the reasons why all of this COVID has really gone crazy over the last 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is now, is the fact that people are tired. People have gotten lax all over the country, and they're tired of all of this. It's not an excuse, but I think that is a significant reason. It's kind of like, and when people feel, I think when things were getting better, they thought, oh, well, we can slack off and we can do things. And they haven't adapted to the reality that this stuff has gotten to spread a lot. But
Mrs. Marsden,
yes,
I'm sorry.
We're talking a month, maybe 6 weeks to be really, really tough. I mean, I seriously doubt the CDC would appreciate what happened in the parking lot today. That was just wrong. It was dangerous and it shouldn't have happened.
So I would suggest we put the survey and the mask, you're going to direct the administration. And we just tell us what you need to do, and if you'd like us to develop a staff survey, to avoid any issues, I'd like to share the questions with you in advance. Every time we've done a survey, people don't like the questions, so I'll share it with the board in advance. And also, I think it's time to do a parent survey as well, and I know Mr. Olive had requested that, so.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll take a look at the previous questions if you want to do some comparisons or if you want to add. And Mrs. Stewart Amber is sitting out here and she's our expert, so she'll start working on that. In addition, I will take it as on my to-do list to take a look at how we can tighten up the mask wearing and what are the potential, working with HR, what are the potential consequences for not complying. And I know that we have had a few cases and that HR has worked with the site administrator when there has been consistent non-compliance.
So is this an amendment that we're adding?
No,
in
I'm
right
just
now?
saying this
Okay,
is a
I just
separate
wanted
to-do.
I just
Don't
wanted to be
confuse you. Don't
It's
confuse your
direction, not an
agenda
amendment. Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
So,
Are there any other comments or questions? Mr. Olive?
No, let's vote on that one.
Oh, okay. I think when we're talking, okay, so our elementary are K through 6. Where does our preschool fall in?
I think it falls within where's Mr. Narducci?
K6.
It should say pre-K.
Pre-K.
Again, we were pulling this together.
It would fall with the option 1 or option 2 recommendation. There may be some priority preschool needs that we may have to work with, and Dr. Marshall will work directly with those in option 2.
That was an oversight. It should be pre-K through 6.
Okay.
If that's your.
Okay. I guess since it's already, whether, even though our teachers would have a work day tomorrow, and it is a non-student day, how do we deal with parents who utilize our elementary schools as really a part of the day daycare type situation? Because not all families are working from home. We do have essential workers as parents within our district, whether they are working in the hospitals or working in grocery stores or even wherever, that they have to go in, or in the service industry, they have to go into work, and trying to find something for them tomorrow. Would we be able to have, Dr. Castile, some type of on-site learning opportunities tomorrow, or some type of, because I'm worried about the little ones. Older kids can pretty much, even though that's not on this motion, older kids can pretty much be able to fend for themselves on those days. They're old enough to stay alone. But it's those kindergartners and first graders and all those kids under the age of being allowed to stay home alone that I'm concerned about.
I'll tell you, we've probably spent 15 hours debating the issues. And that is one of the weaknesses of this particular plan for elementary. One of the suggestions, we could have given you 15, was to start in person and prepare our kids, using our teachers to help the kids know how to sign on, because our help desk gets inundated, and then begin the virtual in a few days for the elementary. So that is another option. We just tried to simplify it for you, and figuring you would probably mix and match all this anyway. So an option is you go with in person, knowing you're going to transition to virtual relatively soon.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Mr. Olive, Ms. Love, Mr. Worth? Mrs. Bruno?
I have some comments. It kind of applies to both, but we've broken it apart. So I'm going to throw my comments together if that's okay. Because I don't want to say, break them up by level. So I'm just going to throw it out there for both levels, secondary and elementary. First, I wanted to thank everybody who's contacted us. We've all gotten hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of emails. And even though that can be difficult to sort through, I really do appreciate each and every person who reaches out. We even got some from a couple students, obviously community members and parents and staff members. And so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And I poured through the information from everyone. Some people, obviously are on the side of remain open no matter what. Some people are stay virtual all year. And then lots of in between, right? Some people have originally sent us letters back in October to tell us that we needed to go, or September, telling us that we needed to get back in person, and now have said we need to be virtual because the numbers are worse now than they were back in September. So it's been all over the board, and I kind of documented the most common things people were sharing with us, and I just wanted to comment on them. And I did get to respond to maybe 100 or so people, and I apologize, I couldn't have responded to each individually. So this is my response to all the thoughts that we've received. A big thing that people who want to stay in person value is that kids are less likely to get and spread COVID. And it does seem that K-3 students are less likely to spread COVID than our middle school and upper grade students. But we do know that 84,000 of Arizona's children have tested positive, which includes, of course, the time period when we weren't open as well as the time period when we were. Many of the studies that say children are at lower risk of spreading the disease were collected during the time period when kids were at home. And so it's really hard to break out the confounding variables on that. It's, and they've tried, and it's kind of tricky, but in general, what we're seeing, and you can get this information from the Athena Foundation and some other places, is that when schools opened, there were more cases with children. And it's really hard to narrow that down, and there's a lot of variables. So it may or may not be a causal relationship. Being virtual put our students' mental health at risk. And we do know that reduced human contact can lead to psychological issues. That is well documented in literature. We know that connecting by video is better than by voice alone. So any teacher who's been teaching virtual knows that there are kids who will not put their video on, especially the older kids, right? And that can be a challenge. And we know that voice is better than writing in the chat, right? There's actually research that shows this. And we know that in-person instruction is better for social connection than any of these, right? So that is definitely there. Teachers and parents have also reported that students are experiencing anxiety, not just when they're at home and not having their social connections, but I had multiple parents contact me that even when they were in person, they had a lot of anxiety about what's going on. And that's to be expected, right? First of all, this generation has much higher rates of anxiety and depression than any generation before it. We don't know why that is. There are some theories out there, but and on top of that, they've been put into this situation that's very stressful. Some students are stressed out that they don't have as much connection as they normally would have. Some students are stressed out because they're in a classroom with 35 other kids and they're afraid they're going to get sick. There's a lot of reasons why kids are having stress right now. But one thing we do know is that contracting COVID significantly increases the risk of depression, anxiety, and sleep disorders that are associated with mental health issues. So I don't want us to forget that element. I feel like what we always hear is when my kid is at home and virtual, they're more anxious. And I can see that, for some students that is true. And I teach psychology every day. I, in fact, started today in my, Tempe Union where I teach, we had school today. And I had new batches of kids in my class for my semester-long class that I teach in psychology. And when I say I care about mental health, I hope you understand that I really do care. I have spent many years creating clubs for my students. I've also been the lead at my school for preventing programs for prevention of drug addiction. I am the Bring Change to Mind sponsor at my school. And I teach my students about mental health and resiliency and growth mindset and a host of other things that hopefully will help them in this, not only in this time, but in other times when they have stress in their life. This will not be the only time they have stress in their life, right? Unfortunately, we all are going to experience, a host of things throughout our lives. So I just want to throw that out there. I am not minimizing what is happening when kids are at home. It is definitely a thing for many students that there is a social impact when they are virtual. It is not ideal. And I don't think any teacher says that it is. But I also want you to be aware that if your child contracts COVID, it is possible that they may have long-term effects that affect their mental health as well. And we won't really know for sure how much that is or how long that will last until we have those studies come out years from now. Other people have said, if you don't want your kids in person, put them in COA and let me have my kid have, let me have choice for my kid. I have mentioned this many times, and yet I guess people are not hearing me, that COA is not offered for all students. It's not offered for all classes, especially at the high school level. We have students that have classes that are not offered in COA. There are electives that are not offered. There are AP classes that are not offered, and there are special needs classes that are not offered. So when people say, when we do virtual, it's a choice, it is not a choice for everyone. And for some of our most vulnerable students who have learning disabilities, ADHD, dyslexia, and a host of other learning disabilities, are often at greater risk for other things too. That might be like, for example, asthma and other conditions that are correlated, and I won't get into all the details on that. There is no flexibility for movement in what we have right now. If this person commits to COA, they are stuck there for the whole semester. So if the numbers get better, they're still in COA. And so I want that to be aware to everyone, that you cannot move in and out. A lot of districts offer that movement, and we are not offering that. There's also been people saying that teachers had a choice to go to COA at the beginning of the school year, and if they don't like what's going on, they can get a new job. And this really hurt my soul, I have to tell you. And it's not everyone on that side of the argument. There are some very respectful, thoughtful people who want schools open no matter what the metrics are. And I appreciate every one of them. But when someone tells me that teachers should go get another job if they're concerned about their health and the health of their family, I don't know what to say to that. Teachers lay their lives on the line right now by entering that school building every day. There are numerous teachers who requested to teach online, but there were not enough sections for all of them to be in COA. And when that decision was made, we told them that when one red metric happened, they would go back to virtual. Okay. Teachers sign contracts and cannot quit during the school year. I want to thank Dr. Castile and administration for the flexibility that they gave teachers at the beginning of the school year in the summer. It's difficult to find teachers in Arizona, especially at the last minute, and they did everything they could to try to bend with people who retired later than we would normally do, and Miss Nance and Sandy Cooper and everyone who worked with that. I want to thank you for that. But right now, for a teacher to pull out of their contract is not ideal, right? And it's tough all the way around. And technically, if the school district wanted to, they could go after their certificate for doing that. So teachers don't have the flexibility that everyone thinks that they do, and neither does the district. It is not easy to find a teacher at random times during the school year. Teachers agreed to teach under the criteria, like I said before. Teachers were told that nearly all elementary classes would follow the CDC social distance guidelines if we removed the furniture and materials were moved around. And we're finding that that is true for some of the elementary schools, and it is for some of the elementary classrooms, and it's not true for others. Secondary teachers were given a spray bottle with a chemical in it that is supposed to sit on the desk for at least 10 minutes, but passing time is not that long. And so they have to wipe it off with a rag. They get one rag to wipe that off with. Some were given barriers and others were not. I actually went through some of the junior highs because when I was giving final exams, I had half days and I was able to walk through some of the schools. And some teachers have made their own makeshift barriers because the district has not provided those. It's not because administration doesn't care. It's that we have limited resources. Like, how many people can we give plexiglass to all around the district for 4,500 teachers, right? So some teachers had to try to come up with things on their own. Teachers have purchased rags, like, for their entire group of students. So there are teachers who have like a laundry basket, and they went out and purchased little washcloths for each kid to wipe their own desk down so they wouldn't have to do it themselves. Teachers were told that they would not have to teach both in person and virtually at the same time, and yet we have hundreds of quarantined students at the high schools. And it's unfair to the students to not have access to education during those 14 days when we're forcing them to stay home, and now 10 days, I believe. But at the same time, it's unfair to the teachers to try to do a hybrid model when they don't have the technology to do it. We have not given them microphones like other districts have so that they can be heard. So if they move away from their laptop, the kids online can't hear what's going on. And not even to mention the cameras that follow you, like that's a whole really expensive thing. So that is a challenge that teachers have been facing. Teachers were told there would be enough subs, and as we all know, that's been challenging. Many staff are having to cover classes, including administrators as well, and a lot of people are putting in a lot of work to cover classes. But this limits teachers' prep time, exposes them to an entire other group of students, and in addition, teachers who had exposure in a classroom are told to come in unless they have symptoms or until they test positive. So teachers are coming in that have been exposed because we don't have enough subs. Many meetings in the district are over 10 people and have occurred at our sites. And I know we've tried to make sure people are spaced out and have masks, but really these things should have been virtual. If we look at industry, nobody is having meetings with 90 people in a room, even if it's a very large room, right? These meetings should be virtual. According to the district's dashboard, no schools should close. This is another thing I've been hearing. Cases on the dashboard are on there for a very short time. The longer testing takes, the fewer days it appears on the dashboard. If we have to wait to hear from the county, it's even shorter than if parents inform us. Receivers of the virus are not considered active cases on our dashboard if they've been quarantined or if a weekend happened and they didn't have symptoms within 48 hours. Students who are more likely to be asymptomatic are the group least likely to be tested. Numbers on the district dashboard show little correlation with numbers from the county. Do we really believe that all the numbers are from charter schools and homeschool kids that we're seeing of the cases of kids under 20? I don't think anyone believes that. The subset of cases that are put on the dashboard are not based on the CDC guidelines or any government advice. The criteria to shut down schools are 10 to 20 times what the CDC recommends. Instead of 100 out of 100,000, it's 1 to 2%. And by the way, the recommendation only lasts for 5 days, so this is a problem. District resources are stretched thin to maintain the district dashboard and to contact trace, and I believe additional hiring has occurred to cover all that. Some staff have reported that students with symptoms are having to remain in classrooms while they wait for a spot to open up in the nurse's office. That was specifically at the high schools, by the way. Another thing I hear is that kids aren't affected much from COVID. COVID death rates for children are much lower, thank God, than for the elderly or people that are older than them. And when they do have symptoms, they are less likely to be hospitalized. We don't know all the long-term effects of COVID, but here's what the studies are telling us so far. Even people who are asymptomatic or have mild symptoms may have long-lasting effects of chronic fatigue, nerve damage and pain, underactive or overactive immune response, depression, anxiety, lability, and in rare cases, psychotic symptoms such as hallucinations. Joint issues, sleep disorders, concentration and memory issues, headaches, digestion issues, liver, pancreas, and kidney problems, new onset diabetes, reproduction issues, scarring and cellular structural damage in the lungs, tachycardia and extreme blood pressure changes, heart inflammation and heart damage leading to heart failure, even in those with mild symptoms, stroke and blood clots, seizures, and Guillain-Barré syndrome, which includes temporary paralysis, even in young people. One study shows that 25% of people who tested positive still have at least one symptom after 90 days, long after the virus has cleared their bodies. Another shows that 60% of subjects had damage to their heart. We hope that these effects will go away with time, but we don't know that that's the case. We know that SARS, 38% of the cases of people who tested positive with SARS had reduced diffusion capacity in their lungs 15 years later. So when we talk about there's not a lot of deaths, I hope that you consider all the research and all the things we're finding out. And it may or may not be for every single group, and it may or may not be long-term. But at least the indicators are now that there is a high risk that there will be long-term effects, even in young people and people with mild cases. And what about the people our children come in contact with? Their teachers and bus drivers, their family members, and their pregnant mothers. We know that the unborn who are exposed to viruses have increased rates of depression, schizophrenia, diabetes, heart disease, and a shorter lifespan. We don't know if COVID will be like other viruses like influenza and its risk of doubling your chances of getting schizophrenia or not. We will find out, I guess. This disease should not be measured in deaths alone, but also in lives impaired and possibly for years to come. There is a new variant out there, B.1.1.7, that right now we're not sure how much more contagious it is. It is not more deadly, but if we increase by 60% how many people have COVID, obviously deaths are going to rise, even if the death rate is equal. We've had many quarantined students. If we were virtual, teachers could focus on one method of teaching instead of two, and all those kids, even if they were exposed outside of our schools, could receive the best education possible away from the classroom. Some classes are at less than half. I've had multiple teachers tell me they had less than half their kids in their class because of quarantined kids before the break happened. The vaccine is coming, and like we said before, relative to other states, we have distributed the vaccine pretty efficiently here in Arizona, and that is a great hope that if we do go virtual, it will not be forever. Virtual instruction can be effective and can be meaningful. I taught virtually from August to October, and then from Thanksgiving to today. Like I said, I had 2 new sections at my psychology class today, and my class of 40 and 41 students that were my new 2 sections. They started out a bit hesitant. They don't all know each other. But by the end of class, 2/3 of the kids had turned on their videos, and about 10 kids spoke out in class, and the rest of the kids put things in the chat. I asked how they felt about how things were going, and multiple kids were like, I'm excited about this. And it has to do with the teacher. If you buy in to make the best of whatever your situation is, and if parents help their kids have that attitude, there can be a lot of learning that happens virtually. And to minimize it is unfair to all the professionals out there who work their asses off, okay, for 10, 12, and 14 hours a day to make virtual learning as best as they can. I think it's unfair of us to just poo-poo that and be like, oh, virtual learning, it sucks, and then take pictures of their kids crying under a desk or something. It just disheartens me because part of the problem might be like the whole context in which they're in. Try to be as positive as you can with your kids in the virtual learning environment. I know it's difficult, it's extremely challenging, And as someone who may not be an educator themselves, being a parent, that's really tough on you to have to support them. But there are professionals on the other side of that camera who are working their tails off. It is not ideal. No teacher wants to teach virtually if they could be in person, but at the same time, they want to be safe. So I know this was very long. I've said some of these things before, but I just want to communicate this as a collective view, that we look at it holistically and not just piecemeal. We should be following the metrics that the county and state has put in place. And for that reason, I'm unable to vote for this motion, to vote yes on this motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Brunner. Are there any other questions or comments?
I would agree with what Ms. Brunner so eloquently stated. And I think that we take for granted that we have a teacher who's on the front lines in the classroom during this time for granted. And I think that her intention in the first motion, I understood it. Like, we should be following the metrics as proposed by the county. But, if we can't do that, at least, we can give our district teachers and our families 2 weeks and reevaluate some things in the next board meeting. I hope that we reevaluate things and take what Ms. Brunner said into account when we come back to the table. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with Ms. Brunner.
Anyone else? Are we ready to go ahead and vote on this particular motion? Okay. Since I was having trouble hearing everyone, especially you, Jason, can we just raise our hands? Okay. And then I'll read them off to you. Okay. All those in favor of elementary, I guess I'll summarize it very quickly, is roughly 2 weeks of instruction through resuming on in person on January 19th, and the support staff work schedule. Those are the 2 main points, correct? Okay. All those in favor of that, which is option 2, and for elementary, I would say A2 and C, please raise your hand.
You said in favor?
In favor.
For now, no.
All those opposed? Oh, it's Jason and Lindsay and myself. All those opposed, raise your hand. Mrs. Brunner, are you abstaining?
No, abstain.
And
For
1
now.
abstention. We have 2 other aspects right now to look at. One is the secondary, and then thresholds for the future when we do go back into person.
Do we have to approve the support staff?
We just did. We did for
In
at
that
least
previous
the,
one?
yeah, and
That was part of another motion, wasn't it?
that was part of elementary, yes.
But we have to amend it in this second one.
And we would have, if we do secondary, we're going to want to also,
So did we not vote down option number 1?
we did not vote it down, but we voted option number 2, yes.
With support services.
With support services, correct.
Okay.
Are you taking the motion now, Madam President?
Yes, let's go on to the next, we need to determine sections. Yeah.
Madam President, I make a motion for option 2B, which is virtual instruction will begin on Wednesday, January 6, 2021, and in-person instruction will resume Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, the day after Martin Luther King holiday. If virtual instruction impacts an employee's ability to perform their regular job duties, the administration will recommend the employee be redeployed in meaningful work. Do you want me to read the option as B to as follows?
I
Dr.
think
Castillo?
special ed is pretty much the same, as well as food
Okay.
and nutrition and childcare is
Okay.
the same.
All right.
And then add maybe 3 to it, or C rather.
Oh, I did.
Okay.
So I added, if virtual instruction impacts an employee's ability to perform their regular job duties, the administration recommends the employee be redeployed in meaningful work. So support staff work will be, like schedules will in there.
Is there a second? Mr. Olive, second it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to add that it'll be reevaluated in the next, in the governing board meeting on the 13th. I don't know why.
Can you restate that?
Yes. So I make a motion to amend option 2B to virtual instruction will begin on Wednesday, January 6, 2021, and in-person instruction will resume Tuesday, January 19th, 2021, the day after the Martin Luther King holiday. If virtual instruction impacts an employee's ability to perform their regular job duties, the administration recommends the employee will be redeployed in meaningful work. All of this will be reevaluated in the board meeting January 13th, 2021.
Do you renew your second? Okay.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this?
Does that leave the door wide open for people just to say, I can't do this?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, it says they'll be employed somewhere else. Did I miss that? That if they can't do something, they're going to be
Are
employed
you talking about the
somewhere?
support staff?
The part you just read.
Yeah, so if virtual instruction impacts an employee's ability to perform their regular job duties, the administration recommends the employee be redeployed in meaningful work. I think you're asking if the support staff has an option to opt out of that and find a job in another district or in another, like
I
outside.
miss support staff, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, okay.
okay.
With our high schools being much more overcrowded and minimal social distancing is available in those as compared to our elementary. Also with our junior high. Plus the, shall we say, much riskier behaviors that have occurred within our community by a significant group of individuals to not have masks and not do social distancing. This whole situation to me is very distressing, that we don't have the community support, that parents would be able to guide their students appropriately to exhibit the appropriate behavior that not only our community expects, but also, I would say, really our whole state. But I guess speaking of the whole state, and when we look at the metrics for movie theaters and dine-in restaurants, we're in the substantial zone, and guess what? None of them are closed like they're supposed to be, according to the website. I know teachers feel unsupported, but I feel as though all of our school boards are unsupported because it makes it very, very difficult when the entire economy, when everything is open within our state. And schools have to be the first to close down. I think it's unfair. I think that it truly tells me that I truly question the commitment of our state to educating kids. I think that it's very, very concerning. I find it very, very frustrating with all of this to say, well, if our kids aren't going to be in class, in school, where are they going to be? Are they going to be hanging out at the malls? Are they going to be going to the movie theater, having parties again? Is it really going to decrease our spread? I don't know. I would hope it'll keep our teachers safer, absolutely. But the lack of regard for other individuals is very, very concerning. And I guess it's more of a social commentary rather than specific to this motion, but I find it very, very difficult because I don't think that I'm very discouraged with our whole community, and I think that when I'm seeing Lindsay nodding, I think you are too. Jason, you are also, and it makes our jobs so much more difficult. And I feel as though, as school boards, we are unsupported also in all of this by those individuals who have the ability to do things that we don't have the ability to do, whoever that might be. Anyway, that's just part of my comments.
I mean, I would agree, and I think that realistically, option 2 is kind of the best that we can do at the moment, but I don't think that 2 weeks is going to be enough of a mitigation factor for our staff. You know, we had a holiday break and we had a house party of how many hundreds of students. And so I don't really think that our community is taking this seriously. And like I said, I do understand Mrs. Bruner's intentions with putting in or looking at going back to the county metrics, because I feel like if we put it onto the community within our zip codes to do the work with us, and they have the ability to determine if schools will remain open or if schools have to shut down. And that takes that out of our control. But I think now, you know, if 2 weeks is the best we can do, of course I'm going to vote for it, but I'm worried about what's going to happen in 4 weeks and in 6 weeks. You know, I'm seeing people on community groups asking where they can take their kids to dance classes and not have to wear masks, which is concerning. Kyrene just lost a dance teacher within that Awatuki community who died from COVID. So I really hope that our community takes this seriously, but I feel like in 6 weeks and 4 weeks, we might be in the same place if our community does not support this.
I have a comment about that. And looking at this, I was thinking of this as a 2-week break to see where we're going to be, and looking at all the metrics and looking at all the curves and amounts of people that are getting sick with Christmas and New Year's on top of that. In 2 weeks, we're probably going to be a whole bunch higher, and I hope we're not. And this is to give us a minute to breathe and look and let those people, if they got sick, let them be sick, let them get well, and hopefully we'll get better. But in 2 weeks, we're going to have to look at it again.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I added that caveat that we need to review that in the next board meeting, as opposed to, hey, we just go back the day after MLK Day, because we don't know what the metrics are going to look like. And it is concerning seeing this pop up that Arizona has the highest rate of COVID-19 in the world, not just in the country, in the world. So we're clearly not doing something right. And I think that Barb is right. We've been held accountable for this and have had to make some difficult decisions that our state leadership should be making on our behalf, with closing down movie theaters and restaurants. So, I mean, it's hard, and I know that we're going to get a lot of angry emails either way, but I really think that some of these large group gatherings, particularly in our community, are a slap in the face to our educators. And for people to get on social media and celebrate that, it is absolutely disgusting. And it's not just for our educators, it is for our community at large. And I think that if we want school to be open, if we want, X, Y, and Z to be open, we've got to do some hard work.
But Ms. Love, it's not just us, it's our entire community.
Oh, no, I'm saying
yes.
the whole community. No,
Yes.
but, I think too, I'm speaking to our CUSD community because that is where the most recent large party gathering took place. And I know that we all got screenshots from all the message boards and people celebrating it as, I'm going to make Facebook moms mad, I'm going to make my teachers mad. But we're in a district where we have lost a teacher. We have lost staff. So it's not a game. Our teachers are right to be scared and fearful because they don't want to die. And outside of that, they have heard of community members who have gotten sick and passed away. I had a supervisee who is in the hospital who we don't even know if she's going to make it, and she got it from her niece's speech pathology teacher. So it's serious, and we're all 6 degrees of separation from COVID. Probably less.
I do like the fact that we will be revisiting this. And if our community steps up to help solve this problem, we can get our kids back in school. I want kids back in school. That's where they need to be. And yes, Mrs. Bruner, we do have some amazing, amazing teachers who do a superb job of doing virtual education. But we also have some that struggle, and teachers that struggle, and we have families that struggle just because of their situations. We can't control what a family has, how their interactions are, and what their life situations are. And it is all those variables that make it, for some people, not a good thing. And it's through, and I don't want to diss a teacher, but it's truly through no fault of the teachers that those situations are out there. And I know that our teachers are doing the absolute best that they can with virtual education. It's just that when somebody on the receiving end has internet that freezes up or sound quality that just doesn't work, it makes it very, very difficult to do virtual learning. I mean, and we truly expect our teachers to not only be teachers, but to be IT specialists for their students. So, and that's something that's quite difficult. So anyway, yes.
When it's appropriate, I need to talk about something.
Okay, are we ready to go ahead and vote on the virtual motion for high school, or secondary rather, which includes junior high and high school? Okay, all those in, we'll do it again, raise your hands. All those in favor of B option 2 and C, please raise your hand.
I abstain.
Mr. Olive, Ms. Love, and myself for yes, Mr. Worth for abstain, and all nays?
Nay.
And Mrs. Bruner is a nay. Okay.
So can I?
Yes, if you would like to.
Okay, I've received a few text messages. One of the people are asking about the EBIT kids, which I thought was a good question. I don't know what we're doing there.
EVIT is still in person right now.
Are they?
And
Okay.
buses run have been running when they were in person and we were not.
Okay. The other one I heard was kids meeting in the parking lots at the high schools. Probably needs to be monitored. It's one of the parents. Barb, will you explain what you said about California? That the rate was lower? You mentioned they've been virtual the whole time, but the infection rate is lower here?
No, the infection rates, the infection rates in California are still very high, even though they've had.
Okay,
yeah.
that's what is helping me. So I'd like to make a motion when appropriate.
Can we go to the thresholds of or go ahead if you.
Let's treat that one last. I
Okay.
don't think that's going to change. I'm going to put together a package. I'd like to move for option 1 and under the secondary option 1 as well, with the stipulation that there are consequences for people that don't wear masks. So again, option 1 elementary, option 1 secondary, with the stipulation that we do a good job on masks. Now, I would like to clarify something, Dr. Castillo.
Joel, they have already passed option 2.
Well, but I thought I was told I could come back to that.
So you want in-person learning for both, for elementary and for junior high and high
I
school?
thought I was allowed to come back to that with another motion.
We-
Because I remember I didn't want to do these until we were done, which I was overruled on, but, so I'd like to make that as my motion. I guess if that motion passes, then it overrules the previous one. Help me understand how to do it.
I guess.
I needed to hear all this before I could give you my thoughts, so.
Well, I guess you could see if there's a second for in-person K through 12. And if there is, to see if.
So you've made the motion. Is there a second for?
Yeah, so let me repeat. Again, option 1, elementary, option 1, secondary, and again, with the stipulation, there's consequences. Before we go there, I'd like to mention in the district office, I've been critical. When I looked at that in September, I said I was concerned about it, and somebody pointed out, we don't have a problem. I go, dang, you're right. I just backed off. What I'm concerned about, we don't have a problem now, from what I know. I'm just concerned the next month that may not be true. So, and then the other thing is most of the world, most employees are working at home. From what I can tell, none of our employees are working at home, and I wonder if that should be revisited. Again, I'm worried about the upcoming month. So that's just, for example, my daughter and her company, they actually locked off the elevators. You can't even go in there, no employee, not even the CEO is in the building. But they're able to do everything virtually. I don't know if that's the case here, so I'm just throwing it out.
Are you talking about the district office going virtual?
Where possible, yes.
Okay. So I guess my question would be like, why
I'm
would?
not, that's not a motion, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I think that should be considered for the next month when things
We have had them virtual early on.
Yeah, with this spike, do we need to revisit it? I'll let you decide that, I'm not.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question would be, why virtual for the district office and not for our sites? If there's a
Well,
concern here.
There may be, for example, payroll here, payroll's going to have to be here. With the teachers, I think they need to be in their, either their online system or in the elementary level, they'd be doing teaching. I think that's true with all businesses. Where they go virtual, they can, and where some employees have to be there, they work.
But I guess like my thing is, if we're worried about the spread of COVID here in the district office, why are we not worried about it at our sites?
Well, I think we are. Because one of my stipulation was the mask and those consequences. I would have that here too. Because you and I think the same on the mask.
Oh yeah, like, you know, you see, I wear 3 masks.
Yeah.
But I guess we haven't seconded it, so I'll
I
stop
know.
asking questions.
And that's not part of the motion. That was just something I'd like Dr. Castillo to consider.
So is there a second on the motion for Mr. Worth's motion for option A1 and B1?
Could you restate that to be clear?
Could you restate your motion?
Yes. I move for option 1, elementary, option 1, secondary, with the stipulation there's consequences for people that don't wear mask, as well as the administrators that don't enforce it. But I didn't say that the first time. But
Okay, if there's no second, the motion will fail due to lack of a second.
Okay,
Okay, so,
there was no second.
no second.
So which one would we pass then?
Virtual instruction
Okay.
We're going to
Did
be,
you vote for that?
I did,
Okay.
yes.
So can I change my abstain to yes?
You may talk to,
Because again, I want to be part of the team.
yes,
And
okay.
if I lose, so be it, but I want to be part of the team. Okay.
And I, although we may all not see eye to eye on a lot of the issues that are going on today, we are all, in a sense, divided just like our community is. But as a board, what the decisions that we make as a board bind all of us, and that is the decision of the board. And even though we may not disagree, we may not agree with a particular decision, we do need to support that decision that has been made by the entire board. I am happy that we can have civil discourse about issues that impact all of us and impact our community, our teachers, our students, our family. And I truly appreciate the fact that our board does have good civil discourse and respects each other's opinion, and I hope that we continue that, to model that to our community. We do
Madam
have,
President,
pardon?
Are you taking a motion on D?
Yes, that's what,
Okay,
just what I was gonna, just what I was going into.
But I'm gonna wait.
So I would like to get a motion concerning the threshold for temporary virtual learning. This is, our current thresholds are in the elementary 2%, junior high 1.5%, and high school at 1%. And the recommendation is to lower those for the time that once we are fully in person again, that these would, when we reach the threshold, those particular thresholds of cases within a school, an individual school, there would be certain protocols that would occur, and there would be a shutdown of that school to virtual only for a certain period of time.
So, Madam President, I was actually going to make a motion that we table the threshold and discuss it in that meeting on the 13th, giving Dr. Castile and the administration an opportunity to do parent and teacher surveys and include their beliefs and thoughts about this threshold for temporary virtual learning in that.
Dr. Castile or Mr. Rother, was there any discussion in the meetings today concerning that?
Yeah, well, the threshold was discussed. I think it was some of the suggestions that we received to lower the threshold given the surge. And I'm just looking at Amber, and do you have any thoughts, Amber, on including that in the survey? February 13th is their...
January 13th.
January 13th.
It is a week from Wednesday.
Oh, we won't have the survey done by then.
Is it possible to ask the parents to, because I'm hearing that Mr. Olive wants to have a parent survey. Is that possible or
Well,
no?
I think we can have it, it takes time to do a survey, so.
Oh, no, I'm just asking about the feasibility of it. If it's a no, then it's a no. But I think because there's so many questions about it, and there was really great discussion, particularly from Mrs. Bruner. I'd like to revisit that after, kind of getting some consultation from the community in some way.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a round table, kind of like what happened this morning for our educators. Maybe there's one for parent. I don't know.
Can we get back to you whether, I don't think we can be ready the next meeting, but we can be ready either the end of January or the first part of February with parent survey. But at that time, you will be, you're going to be virtual.
Okay, so.
In that case, I would rather not table this
Yeah.
right now. I would either,
I was going to recommend, if that's the case, then my recommendation would be to lower the threshold effective January 5th, 2021 to elementary 1.5%, junior high 1% positive active cases, and high school 0.75% positive active cases, and that we revisit that in the February 13th scheduled board meeting.
Okay.
let me just, it's a February 10th meeting.
I'm sorry, my dates are all over the place.
That's okay.
February 10th.
I had to look too, so.
Point of order, Madam President. I think when we say to table something, that means to put on the table and look back at it at the same meeting, and then it should be a motion to postpone to a certain date, just for
I will
official
make a
business.
motion to
Yes.
postpone to the February 10th meeting, a further discussion of this threshold.
Is there a second to that table motion?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. I guess my particular question is, do we want something to be in place between, that is a lower threshold between now and?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, that we need to lower the threshold effective January 5th, 2021, and then revisit
And then
that
revisit.
in the 10th.
And that is two, so your motion is two-part, lower the threshold
Yeah.
now and then revisit it
Yeah.
on the February 10th.
Yeah, I can make two separate motions. Does that help?
So it's truly not tabling it, right, Laura?
Yeah, no. I would say that we lower the threshold effective January 5th, 2021, and revisit the threshold fully on that meeting on February 10th.
Mr. Olive, do you still want to second that motion?
We can vote on this if you want to, but I don't think we're ever going to get up to these percentages if we've got 49,000 staff and students in one case right now, you know.
So are you seconding it, or?
Sure, I can second. I second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of lowering the threshold and revisiting it to the printed threshold numbers here and revisiting it on February 10th, please say aye, or raise your hands. The four of us on this end, Olive, Love, Marsden, and Worth, vote yes. All those opposed?
Option 2. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Bruner's abstaining. And Mrs. Bruner abstained, the motion carries. So we will revisit those lower the thresholds again, but in the meantime, it is, once we need those, they will be in place when we go back to in person. Our next is our road agenda board, our roadmap. Our next meeting is January 13th, which is a week from Wednesday. The roadmap is probably a little bit out of date now due to the fact that we've had this special meeting. So we will go ahead and I know there are a number of items that we'll have on there that are not listed on here.
So Barb, there's some things I would like to discuss. Will they be put on the roadmap?
I would suggest that you talk with Dr. Castile.
Okay, I thought as president you were going to work that out with Camille. Okay.
You can work that out with her.
Some of them aren't time sensitive, they're not.
Okay, okay. And any other board member who is interested in getting a study session on certain things, especially our new board members, if you have questions, if it's something that has been recently presented to the board that you have not been a part of and haven't heard about it, You can basically, you can talk with Dr. Castile, and she can make arrangements perhaps for you to meet one-on-one with one of the cabinet members for them to be able to go over things that may have been presented to the board in previous study sessions. If it is something that we're all needing to be updated on, then we can have something like that. Or if it's something that is of interest to the community, then we will have a discussion during a study session here at some of our board meetings. So those are kind of a little bit of the rules. Dr. Castile, do you have any comments this evening?
No, I don't, Madam President. We will be getting that information. I believe Terry just stepped out. We will get this information out to families as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
And staff, excuse me.
Can I just ask a clarifying question? Under this plan, we're still having the on-site supports like during other virtual times?
Yes, I think that was included, and we're going to put the motion as written that Mrs. Bruner, or sorry, Ms. Love did. We'll just put that whole thing there for the families.
Okay, thank you.
Barb, what's going on
Mr.
with
Wood.
sports? I've lost track. Are they keeping them? Are they just different seasons?
It's been delayed till January 18th for competition.
Okay.
But they have to condition 2 weeks prior to that.
So is basketball in essence starting then too, for
I'm
example?
not sure where we are with it, but I'll get that information for you. Could be conditioning, because they can't start competing without conditioning.
Do we have any board member comments? Mr. Worth?
One of the things I like about study sessions, to me, that's when things are really worked out and discussed. So that's the part I really like, and it gives you a good chance to have to give and take and so forth. That's kind of why I'm kind of to push that. I just kind of want to compliment, in all the emails I got, I was just amazed to me as how well they were written, how well they were thought out, both sides. Occasionally we had a few people take shots at it, but I have to say I was kind of impressed. And I think that, the other thing is, I think we all think the same. I think we all care about parents, we care about kids, and we care about our staff and so forth. But at the end of the day, I hope we are putting kids first.
Anyone else? Mr. Olive?
Well, I don't have anything that nobody else has already said, but I would like to say for those people that are watching on the internet and haven't already turned it off, that there's a room full of people here that are tired and they're working without getting paid because they don't get paid for this, and they're not happy about any of it because we're kind of, we kind of have to split the baby, or we have in this situation, and it's not really a wonderful thing. And no matter what we did, it was going to make a lot of work for all these people and all the teachers. It's going to be kind of a fire drill for parents to get used to stuff, and especially for people who have little kids that are going to be at home. I understand those guys. My kids are in high school. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge, but not that bad. But thank you, everybody. And thank you for your patience. And thank you for your emails. We're reading them. We are listening to your comments.
Ms. Love?
I just wanted to welcome our new board members. And then also, I think maybe the community is confused. Can we do a recap of what we voted on tonight? I know it's going to be posted, but I'm thinking that the community is asking for it to be read because we threw around a few things.
Certainly. Would you like me to go ahead and do that, or?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
Dr. Castile.
We will.
Take my mask off?
Yes, go ahead. Dr. Castile.
The board voted this evening to approve, and I'm going to combine pre-K, preschool through 12th grade to go virtual. Beginning January 6th, which is Wednesday, and resume in-person instruction on Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. It's the day after the MLK, Martin Luther King holiday, Martin Luther King Jr. The option allows for a quarantine period after returning from the winter break where students and families have traveled and participated in gatherings. And in line with many of the recommendations and requests we receive from staff and families. Tuesday, January 5th, this is what's different and for our families to know, will be a non-student day, means children do not come to school tomorrow. It's a teacher work day. We're asking teachers to report to their site so they can get whatever they need to prepare for virtual instruction and help identify and distribute the devices to those students who need them. The principals, I'm sure, are aware, but there might be devices in classrooms where we have to get those available. Special education services will be provided as they were during the previous virtual instructional period of time. Dr. Marshall, Kim Marshall, and her staff will work with the teachers to deliver in-person services to those in specialized classrooms beginning the week of January 11th, ideally. Details will be communicated directly to the families this impacts. All students with special education services will return to school in person with the pre-K 12 general education population on January 19th. So what it says, the special ed could return a week earlier, similar to what we did when we brought them back early in the fall. Food and nutrition departments are going to be prepared to distribute meals. They're working diligently with the proposition that we've just discussed. Communication will, the families keep checking the website and your phones for information. Child care options, we are working on providing child care options, and that communication will also be posted on the website, and we will notice families when it becomes available. Also contained in this agenda item was we will be discussing and reviewing this action on January 13th, which is the regularly scheduled board meeting next week, and our support staff work schedule to put our support staff, their minds at ease. We will redeploy any support staff whose job is eliminated due to a virtual model and redeploy you and give you an opportunity to work over the next 2 weeks so that your compensation and benefits are not negatively impacted. We also approved a lower threshold for the a lower threshold that would require the district to put a single site in a virtual learning model. It was 2% for elementary. It's now 1.5% of the total population would have you would have an active cases of 1.5% of your elementary population. Then we would put them in temporary virtual. 1% for junior high and 0.75% for high school. There'll be more discussion on this. This won't be an issue for the next couple weeks anyway, as we will all be virtual. We will revisit that item on, or have additional information on February 10th. In addition, the board has asked us to develop a staff and parent survey, and also to look at ways that we can enforce masks with consequences for individuals who do not comply. Did I get it all?
I think so. Dr. Castillo, though, could you possibly comment on those families who do need to have devices or hotspots and how that's going to be handled?
No doubt that the principals, Mr. Narducci and Dr. Gilbert, will be in touch. They'll be getting emails on how they acquire. I would tell a family, if you are in dire need of a device, that you should let your school know. In the meantime, they will get instructions on where the distribution. We will not go to a central site. We will be distributing the computers from their school.
Thank you. So they are to call the school, their individual schools, if they are looking to, or if they need some technological assistance. Is there, Mrs. Bruner, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
I just also wanted to welcome our 2 new board members, and I just wanted, again, to thank everyone who's put so much work into everything, not just this last week, which has been hectic for several people, but over this whole time, both the staff members and the family members that, have to work so hard to support their children during this time. whether it's with instruction or with other aspects related to COVID, it's difficult all the way around. And I just wanted to thank everyone for all their hard work.
Thank you, Mrs. Bruner. I also would like to thank all the individuals who have been really burning the midnight oil and burning the candles at both ends. I know our teachers have been burning the candles at both ends for sure, although at least there was a little bit of a break for you for the 2 weeks, but we truly appreciate all that you do. Thank you so much. I do believe that Mrs. Nash, I'm going to kind of break protocol a little bit. She has either a question or she would like to make a comment.
Just a question from everyone. So we said support staff could be reassigned. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so support staff could be reassigned and we have teachers reporting on campus tomorrow, but can teachers work remotely while we are virtual? That's what we had done in the past.
That is something that Dr. Castile can address.
Katie, we'll get back to you on it. We were going to do what we did last time.
So thank you very much for attending. I urge you to be patient. I know that many people are not going to be happy with the decisions that we have made this evening. But we do believe that this is probably best for our individuals, and we do know that with all of the different needs that every family has, that there is not going to be one solution that is going to make everyone happy. So thank you and have a good evening. This meeting is adjourned.